Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 14th, 2023 New Bern Board of Aldermen meeting. Prayer tonight will be coordinated by Alderman Prill.
Thank you, Mayor. The prayer this evening is going to be offered by Mr. Howard Neviser, President of Temple B'nai Shalom.
Thank you for this opportunity. Grant us peace, our most precious gift, our eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country that it may always be a stronghold of peace and its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within its borders, health and happiness in its homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship among the inhabitants of all lands, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. We praise you, O God, the source of peace.
Amen. If you would please stand with me as we pledge allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, if you would please call the roll.
Alderman Prill.
Here.
Alderman Royal. Here. Alderman Astor.
Here.
Mayor Odham.
Here.
Alderman Kinsey.
Here.
Alderman Best.
Present.
Alderman Brinson.
Here. Okay, has the board had a chance to review the agenda?
Mayor, I'd like to make one revision to the agenda. I know we have a number of individuals in attendance this evening here to listen to or to give or to talk to the board about the possibility of a menorah being put on city property during the holidays. Since that issue had been removed from our pre-agenda, I would like to make a motion to at least put a placeholder back on the agenda for that issue to be discussed by the board following the presentations that are going to be made this evening.
Is that your motion?
Yes.
Okay. Hearing no second, that motion dies. Do we have a subsequent motion for approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved. Alderman Prill opposed. Number 4 is request and petition of citizens. Ms. Clerk? Thank you. Okay, first one tonight is Steve Skiffington, 5602 Gondolier Drive. Mr. Skiffington?
I came here tonight to support the temple. I am dismayed to what just happened. So educate me. Am I to understand that because there was not a second on the motion to hear about it, that it is killed, it is dead? Is that correct?
Mr. Skiffington, the petition of citizens is an opportunity for the citizens to speak to the board. There's typically not interaction back and forth, but the motion was made to have an item placed back on the agenda after the petition of citizens for the board to deliberate, and that died for a second. The public is still, that's all that has signed up, is still going to be allowed to speak for their 4 minutes.
Okay. I'm from California. My husband and I moved here 2 years ago. I had people in California who feared for my safety because I'm an open gay man. I had people in my church, I'm an Episcopalian, who feared for my safety because I was coming, quote unquote, to the South. And I told them people were just people. I was not worried. I just finished the New Bern 101 class. I was highly impressed how this city is run. The departments, I mean, I was blown away. I did not expect it to be that level, and it is, and it surpasses it. What I am shocked at is that anti-Semitism is alive and well. I'm not moving, but it's just like, don't people watch the news and know what has happened and what is happening in this country on many levels? And for this group of elected leaders to fail to even give it a second, I think is disgraceful. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Jody Sherman of 204 8th Street in New Bern.
Good evening. My name is Jody Sherman. I'm a trustee and co-chair of the Outreach Committee for Temple B'nai Shalom. I am here requesting a menorah be included with the Christmas decorations at Union Point Park. Temple B'nai Shalom is a small but growing congregation. We are the sole synagogue in New Bern and Craven County. We are also the only Jewish house of worship that serves 4 other counties: Pamlico, Carteret, Onslow, and Jones. While our mission is to serve the religious and spiritual needs of our congregation, we strive to build connections with members of other faiths and to join them in supporting our common values of bringing peace and unity into the world. We are members of Faith Connection, and we participate in several community-based programs and events. In December of 2022, we were invited by Carolina Creations to participate in Live Windows to create New Bern's first Hanukkah window display. Crowds of people were delighted to see and hear the Hanukkah story, and many of them remarked, "It's about time." We are delighted to be invited to participate in this year's Live Windows by Surf, Wind, and Fire. New Bern involves the community in numerous celebrations, whether historic events or holidays. In the month of December, excuse me, the Christmas decorations and celebrations that fill the town make the season very festive for all to enjoy. As members of the local Jewish community, we would love to see our own winter holiday of Hanukkah, which is referred to as the Festival of Lights, also displayed for all to enjoy. There are cultural representations of both Christmas and Hanukkah. The public display of holiday and religious symbols has raised controversy and has been brought before the courts over the years. In 1989, a Supreme Court case concluded that when a menorah is placed next to a Christmas tree, the overall effect of the display recognizes that both Christmas and Hanukkah are part of the same winter holiday season, both of which have attained a secular status in our society. Many towns display menorahs alongside of Christmas decorations. And here are some towns in North Carolina that already display public menorahs and Christmas decorations together. We initially made this request over a year ago and were given the impression that the Parks Department was going to build a menorah like the other lighted holiday displays. Earlier this year, we requested a freestanding electric menorah, which is more in keeping with our tradition. These electric menorahs, which you can see the pictures of, sit on a metal base that can be set up and taken down every year. If cost is an issue, we would be happy to raise money to help cover the cost. If an electric menorah is not an option, we would welcome the inclusion of a lighted menorah structure created by the Parks and Recreation Department. On behalf of Temple B'nai Shalom, we hope that our presentation tonight creates a better understanding of our request to include a Hanukkah menorah in New Bern's community holiday display. Please consider the inclusion of a lighted display as an expression of New Bern's motto, "Everything comes together here," and our advocacy for community unity. The first night of Hanukkah is December 7th, and we would greatly appreciate your decision before then if possible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Maxine Wiseman of 511 Craven Street.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Maxine Weisman. I'm a trustee of Temple B'nai Shalom and co-chair of the Community Outreach Committee. I'm here to support the request for a Hanukkah menorah at Union Point and to share with you a letter from our rabbi, Rabbi Benjamin Shul, who could not be here today. Friends, it has been 8 months since I assumed the position as the rabbi of the Jewish community of New Bern. During that time, my wife and I have found New Bern to be a town filled with open-minded and caring people who are proud of their community with all it has to offer. We have been welcomed and embraced by all. Imagine my surprise and disappointment when I was told by my lay leadership that the town leadership had initially rejected our request to display and light a Hanukkah menorah at Union Point Park, among the other winter holiday decorations and symbols. The Hanukkah menorah is a cherished symbol of the holiday of Hanukkah, reminding everyone of the triumph of light over darkness and freedom over oppression. Excluding this vital part of Jewish tradition from New Bern's holiday celebration is excluding the Jewish community. I'm sorry that I'm not able to join my congregants in person to make our case. I hope that you will reconsider your initial rejection of our request. We trust that not only does everything come together here, but everyone comes together here as well. B'Shalom, in peace, Rabbi Ben Shul. Thank you.
I'll apologize in advance for this last name, but it's Howard Nevisser of
I'll be brief
811
because
Helm
I'm
Drive.
Nowhere near as eloquent as the previous three people. I just want to remind you all, what I feel is diversity is one of the strengths of New Bern. Most people here that you meet came from someplace else. They come here, they find a common denominator. We have probably the strongest interfaith community that anybody could ever want. We work together, we support each other, and we should always publicize and make visitors aware of our diversity. And having a menorah and Christmas together makes sense to me. Hopefully it'll make sense to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Deacon Jim Hackett of 207 Fairmount Way.
Good evening, Mayor, all the women, all the men. A few minutes ago, I made a conscious decision to put my disappointment aside and remain optimistic and hopeful. And thank you, Alderman Prill, for your attempt and your motion. For the past 7 years, I have served as an ordained deacon at St. Paul Catholic Church here in New Bern. I'm also the board chair of Faith Connection, a local nonprofit organization in a partnership of local congregations, clergy and lay people, Christians and non-Christians, working together for the betterment of our wonderful community. And I've had the privilege and the blessings of having been involved in various interfaith groups for the nearly past 20 years. And during that time, I've gotten to know many people of many different faith traditions, and have grown to understand that we, people of faith, have so much more in common than we have in differences. I have gained this knowledge over this time through many conversations and sharing of beliefs and stories with these people, my brothers and sisters. This knowledge, this understanding, has taken a place in my own ignorance, and ignorance is simply a lack of knowledge, and that results in a lack of understanding, which then results in mistrust, prejudice, and sometimes outright hatred. And in my journey as a Catholic deacon, I've also learned more about my own faith and began to better understand more and appreciate more about our Judeo-Christian history and connection. I've also learned that Jesus Christ was a pretty good Jew. You can certainly look at the menorah as a religious symbol, but it is so much more than that. Although it's really a minor holiday in the Jewish calendar, it has grown in significance. And one way to view it, even if you are not Jewish, is that it celebrates the miracle of people looking after one another and doing what is right. The menorah tells a story, and it's a story about survival, about freedom. In Hebrew, the word menorah means lamp. Lamps provide light, and light represents goodness. The menorah is a story about light, goodness, overcome the evil of darkness. In the traditional menorah, the candles representing each day are not higher than one another. They serve equally. And that serves us as a reminder for all of us that there is a danger when we lift one group over another. And there's hope and beauty when we connect to one another as equals. Perhaps it is time for people to make the effort to learn more about the stories from people who may pray or worship differently than they do. And by hearing these stories, their fears, their mistrust, their prejudices will be replaced by knowledge. And knowledge will give them understanding and the willingness to live as one world, which has become so divided today. Many of us here, including many of you on this board, are believers in God. And if we believe that God is our Father, then we must also believe that everyone here in this room, everyone in the city of New Bern, and everyone throughout this troubled world is our brother or sister. You cannot believe one and not the other. That would simply be hypocrisy. On behalf of the members of Faith Connection Community, I ask you that you please reconsider your decision to not allow the menorah to be on display at Union Point Park. And I encourage you to also learn the story of the menorah and give the people of this great city of New Bern the opportunity to also learn this wonderful story of light overcoming darkness, which is something we need now more than ever. I thank you in advance for your prayerful reconsideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Bailey Evans of 1332 Girton Street in New Bern.
Good evening. I am the chair of a local nonprofit creating and sustaining equity, and I'm here on behalf of our board and our members to stand in support of allowing Temple B'nai Shalom to display a menorah at Union Point Park throughout the 8 nights of Hanukkah. Our city's slogan is "Everything comes together here." This is an easy opportunity to put action behind our words and demonstrate a commitment to fostering community ties. If the local Christian community gets to see their holiday celebrated in the park for nearly an entire month, there's no reason to deny the local Jewish community a similar opportunity. The members of Temple B'nai Shalom have dealt with enough disrespect from their fellow citizens. Their place of worship has been vandalized, and their services regularly have police protection. It's not acceptable to need armed protection to feel safe practicing your religion, and we should not be fostering a divide where this is the norm. Prioritizing one religious holiday while denying access to another is tacit support for that division. As our city's elected representatives, the Board of Aldermen should be leading the way in creating an atmosphere of welcome and support for every New Bernian, regardless of religious affiliation. You all have an opportunity to help everything come together here. Please support your constituents who are asking to be represented and allow them to celebrate alongside their neighbors. In the spirit of our new city ad campaign, it's time to equally embrace the religious traditions of all the people who live here, not just some of them.
Next is John E. Price of 5213 Springwood Drive.
Good afternoon. Actually, I was unaware that I was signing up to speak. I came here as part of Faith Connection, and Deacon Jim has spoken on our behalf, and I would like for everyone here to reconsider placing a menorah at Union Park. I've recently relocated to New Bern. I spent 22 years in the military, and then just now retired back into the community. And I'm quite shocked at what I'm seeing right now. I would just like for everyone here to reconsider and support all religions equally and allow this celebration, beautiful celebration, to occur. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Helen Robinson of 1906 Cayenne Court.
Good evening, friends. I'm not Jewish, I'm Presbyterian, but I've come here tonight on behalf of my Jewish friends and neighbors to support their request to display their menorah at Union Point Park. The city of New Bern in recent years has already displayed its willingness to honor different traditions by starting a Juneteenth celebration a few years ago. I was so delighted when that began. Hanukkah is an important Jewish celebration. The menorah, as you've already heard tonight, is the Jewish symbol for their belief that light overcomes darkness. And I want to tell you, I think that's a good message to share in today's world. As I already told you, I'm Presbyterian, and I'm from First Presbyterian Church, and our senior pastor, Anna Pinckney Strait, wrote a letter to you guys, and I've been asked to read it real quickly in about a minute and a half. So, this is to the mayor and the board. As a relative newcomer to New Bern, I have found New Bern to be a welcoming and kind place. I have enjoyed living and working in a community that values its neighbors and the relationships we build. I also value that New Bern is not a place where everyone is from here. We welcome people from all over and invite them to make this their home. Having lived up and down the East Coast, I've learned to look for signs and signals about the nature of a community. Signs and signals such as the decorations a community shares and what it celebrates. Here in New Bern, I've enjoyed and appreciated the celebration of light at Union Point. It's a focal point in our whole community, and it usually has a glorious Christmas tree and Christmas lights. I've noticed, however, the absence of a menorah in our light display. Many communities where I've lived has included those, and it's always been a sign to me that that community wants to be welcoming and a safe place. I value the inclusion of other traditions. In this time in our country with rising anti-Semitism, one small step can help declare that New Bern is not a place where hate is welcomed. The menorah is a naturally good fit for this, for at its very basis is the proclamation that light will not be defeated by night, and that joy will conquer despair. The congregation at First Presbyterian Church feels so strongly about this that we will be installing our own menorah on our church campus, as will 2 or 3 other downtown churches, so be looking around. Temple B'nai Shalom has been our valued and good neighbor for more than 125 years, and we believe it's important to try to be a good neighbor to them. I pray that you will feel the same. If I can help make this happen, I hope you'll call on me. She's offering to help. Signed, Anna Pinckney Straight. So in closing, I just want to ask you to demonstrate that in New Bern, we still believe in being good neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Last but certainly not least is Reverend Ethel Sampson of 1038 Sampson Street.
Praise the Lord, everybody. Praise the Lord. To the Honorable Mayor, Board of Aldermen, the city officials, and everybody on the sound of my voice, I just had to come here to thank y'all for allowing me to be the first one to come up the elevator. And I was accompanied by the chief and my daughter Barbara. And I've been coming to the board integrated segregated times, 69 years. And when I don't be here, I was looking at y'all on the board. So I just thank you for what I came for.
Thank you. Okay, board, next is the consent agenda. What is the pleasure of the board?
May I make a motion to accept the consent agenda as is?
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Prill.
Alderman Prill,
Yes.
Alderman Royal, Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Mayor Odham.
Yes, consent agenda carries. Mr. Hughes, I believe you had a personnel introduction that you wanted to make this morning.
Yes, sir. Tonight I'd like to introduce Zeb Huff. He is our new Executive Director of the Redevelopment Commission. At this time, I'd like to ask Zeb to come up and make a few comments if you'd like to.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Alderman, Board. It's the first time I get to stand before you as in my new role, but it won't be the last. We're excited about the work we have to do with the Redevelopment Commission, and we're excited to partner with you. And so that's all I have. I promise this will be the only time I'm brief ever. So, that it? All right.
Jeb, why don't you give us an update on the small home project?
Say again?
Why don't you give us an update on the small home project that you're overseeing?
Absolutely. We just broke ground last Friday on the small home project, and in 180 days we look forward to cutting that ribbon and adding 3 quality-built homes to the housing stock in New Bern, North Carolina. So, like I said, we're serious about the work we have to do, and we're excited to get busy. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item number 12 is the recognition of the New Bern 101 graduates. Mr. Hughes.
Mayor, we started New Bern 101 back in the fall of 2021. Tonight ends the 5th session of that program, and it's really a great opportunity for citizens of the city of New Bern and surrounding areas to come to learn more about what local government has to offer and talk to the department heads and other staff, as well as the elected officials on the final night to see what makes local government tick. So throughout this process, we have had 74 folks participate in this class, and tonight we have a graduation of our 5th class. So I'm going to turn it over to Colleen at this time.
Yeah, we'll just give it a minute for everyone to exit politely and courteously. Not all. Not all. I think we're probably safe, Colleen, if you want to continue now.
Good evening, Mayor, Board of Aldermen. I'm pleased to introduce you to the 5th class of New Bern 101. We started this session with 18 participants, and this is the first time the class has been split right down the middle. 9 participants who live in city limits and 9 people who live in Craven County. To give you a picture of this class, these are folks who come from backgrounds in mortgage loan officer, realtors, retired educator, folks who work in the nonprofit sector, the tourism sector, healthcare administration, and more. There are folks in this class who visited New Bern once and decided to move here. In their application, they wrote they were impressed with the pride that we take in our city. There are participants who just moved here in the spring of this year. I think what I've explained to you so far speaks to the importance of this program to folks who have just moved here, who've lived here a long time, and folks who choose to work in the city and the surrounding area. So I'd like for you, if you don't mind, to come stand in front of the partition to congratulate them as they come to receive their certificate of completion. We also have a New Bern pin for them, and we'll call them up one by one.
That's why I gave them just to him.
First, congratulations to Darla Blair. Start down here, I'm sorry. Start to your right. Congratulations, Darla. Dave Cacavero. Ruth Cooper. Where's your certificate? Judy Kramer. Bruce Granger. Ryan Jones. Celeste McAllister. Teresa McManus. Roy Pratt. Sure. Evelyn Richards. Lindsay Roberts. Steve Skiffington. All right, you may have left us. And last but not least, Stephen Winters. Thank you, Mayor, Board of Aldermen, and City Managers. As you make your way back to your seats, if the graduates could come up front, I'd love to take a group photo of you. You don't have to bring your certificate. If you want to, great. If you don't, that's fine too. Yes. Come over to this corner. For those who may be watching at home or joining us in the audience tonight, the next New Bern 101 will start in February 2024. It is an 8-week free program. You can find out more at newbernnc.gov/NewBern101.
Okay, congratulations again to all the graduates. We'll move on to item number 13, Mr. Hughes, presentation of Wreaths Across America.
Mayor, at this time I'd like to ask Addie Yates to come forward to give her presentation.
Perfect. How does this start? This one? Thank you. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Evening.
Evening. Mayor, Alderman, thank you for having me today. My name is Addie Yates. I am one of the coordinators here for the National Cemetery here in New Bern, North Carolina. This is our, what was this say? This year our event will be Saturday, December 16th at 12 noon. I apologize, I've never done this. There we go. There are currently over 3,500 cemeteries participating in Wreath Across America. This is our 14th year participating in the program. We're one of the largest veteran cemeteries here in eastern North Carolina. We have 6,773 headstones, and we also, it was just built after the Civil War, and it contains over 1,000 unknowns also. Every wreath will be placed, is sponsored, and they are a live wreath, and they are $17. Some of our challenges of getting all 6,773 headstones covered is the fact that we are one of the oldest and in the area, and the military, I'm gonna slow down here for a second. Military families don't stay in the area once their family has been interred here. So with that, and them being an old cemetery, they are transplants that aren't connected to the cemetery. So the 1,000 also are unknown and do not have family members to ensure that each headstone has a wreath and are remembered during this ceremony. Here are some of the pictures of the events that we have for you. There's also more than just wreaths, as you can see. We also have other things that let the community be involved and participate in. We have our truck escort, which has gotten bigger and bigger over the years. That is one. We also have, our motto is to honor, remember, and teach. I'm going to let you guys know that my husband does so much better at this than I do.
You're doing fine.
He is the talker. So here's the escort. We are asking currently for you guys to help us with the police escort for this event, and this is going to be on Thursday, December 14th at 9 a.m. for the police escort. Placing the wreath is also our primary way of participating, but we also have a setting up the before in the morning of the event on Saturday, the 14th. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry, I got my dates wrong there. The escort is on the 14th of December. The Saturday, dude, I don't even have it. Let's see here. Here we go. I'm going to just slide through here. It's a beautiful. Placing the wreaths is our primary way to participate. We have a brief ceremony followed by family members placing the wreaths and their loved one's headstone, and then all the volunteers placing the remaining wreaths. Another way to participate in the wreath is the retirement. This has become as popular as placing the wreaths. This year's the wreaths will be retired on Saturday, January 13th at 9 a.m. So what we're requesting is the fire department escort and the buses of the day of the event at Ruth Chapel to the cemetery, and that's from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for the busing. And also 2 dumpsters to discard the wreaths on January 13th. And as you can see, there we go. And that's basically, we have lots of volunteers. This is an opportunity for the community to honor our veterans and to teach the future children. Yeah. And that's all I'd like to say.
Thank you.
Thank you
Mr.
for having
Hughes,
me.
I believe a few years ago, and this is the same request that we've had for the past several years, right?
Yes, sir.
I believe a few years ago, if I'm not mistaken, Alderwoman Harris at the time made the motion that we would just continue to do this year after year, and the purpose of the presentation was just a reminder. Is that, Alderman Kinsey, okay, I just want to make sure I remember that correctly. All right. So it's not a new request? It's okay.
Just to continue to follow from, and I believe this is what, our 10th year of you guys helping us?
Does the board have questions?
Anybody that I may answer?
Do we need a motion or just direction?
A direction will be fine.
I'm fine with continuing the
I
tradition.
I think we should do whatever we can do to help with the project and continue, at least continue doing what we've been doing.
It runs pretty smoothly. You guys have done amazing for us with the dumpsters and the cleanup, and then also with just the presence. We're not asking for anybody to be at the day of the ceremony. We're not asking the police or anybody, just to be aware that we're there. And it should be starting around 8 a.m. is when, 7 to 8 a.m. is when we start doing the unboxing and placing of the wreaths. And then the actual ceremony is at noon, and that's when everything goes. And so from 11 to 2 is when the buses that we were hoping you could help with, so that we can keep parking from piling up on the streets.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys have a wonderful evening. So is
Just to
everything?
be clear. what
Anyone
our
in
time
opposition
is.
of this? No? All good?
Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 14 is to conduct a public hearing and consider adopting an ordinance to annex 412 Sandy Point Road. Mr. Hughes.
Donna Marie Hines has petitioned to annex the property in question. This property is the site of a single-family residence on 1.16 acres that is contiguous to the city of New Bern's municipal boundary. After conducting a public hearing, the board is asked to consider this annexation request.
Board have questions for staff before I open a public hearing? Okay, at this time I will open a public hearing for the topic of annexing 412 Sandy Point Road. If anyone has any comments, please come forward to the microphone.
Mayor, I make a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Any further discussion?
I do have one question. Police and fire have reviewed this and have no issues with this. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
All those in favor of closing the public hearing say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Public hearing is now closed. What is the pleasure of the board on item number 14?
Mayor, make a motion to adopt an ordinance to annex 412 Sandy Point Road.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Royal.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Alderman Prill,
Yes.
Mayor Odham.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 15, consider adopting a resolution approving an interagency agreement with Craven and Pamlico Children's Advocacy Center of South Mountain Children and Family Services and other parties. Chief Gallagher.
Thank you, Mayor, Board. The New Bern Police Department has been working with the Craven Pamlico Children's Advisory Center for many years. We are but one of many stakeholders in the process of trying to reduce childhood trauma through abuse. We are asking that we renew this MOU so that we can continue this relationship.
Does the board have questions?
If there's no questions, I'll make a motion.
Sure.
I make a motion to adopt a resolution approving an interagency agreement with Craven and Pamlico Children's Advocacy Center of South Mountains Children and Family Services and other parties.
Second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Astor.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Alderman Prill,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Mayor Odham.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 16 is to consider adopting a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a memorandum of understanding with the North Carolina Anti-Counterfeiting Trademark Task Force. Chief Gallagher.
Thank you again, Mayor. Over the past 6 months, if not longer, the New Bern Police Department, in conjunction with the Craven County Sheriff's Office, has been monitoring activities within our city, within our county, involving the sale of counterfeit and trademark protected merchandise within our area. This is a very unique criminal event, which is articulated in general statute. It's one of those types of criminal events that requires expertise. The state of North Carolina, unfortunately, only has 3 investigators for the entire state. The Craven County Sheriff's Department was proactive in establishing a TFO with that agency to allow them to be duly sworn to investigate the counterfeiting of these trademark merchandise. We feel very strongly that the New Bern Police Department needs to be involved in this type of investigative measures. We have identified staff that would pick up a collateral responsibility to also investigate this type of activity within our city. This is not a small problem. This is a very large problem, which we feel that we need to be part of the solution. So I'm asking that you approve our ability to sign this MOU so that our staff can become a force multiplier in trying to bring within our community a stop of this type of sales of counterfeit merchandise.
Board have questions?
Yes, I do. How long have this actually been into operation, and why are they still open if the task force are going in confiscating illegal sales? Why are they still open? Why? So what are you going to do different to shut them down?
That's a very complicated, well, it's a simple question. It's a complicated answer. The violations associated with this type of activity is tough to prosecute. Our local prosecutor is not familiar with this type of activity, although they are becoming more aware. The reason it is prevalent in our area, as it is in many areas, it's very profitable, very profitable. The ability to pull a business license to sell these items is also problematic. It is not as easy as just to go in and say, you have to stop doing business. Just because somebody's convicted once doesn't mean that they are not going to continually sell this merchandise. One manager could be replaced by another manager, and the process starts all over once again. Again, the profit margin in the sales of these counterfeit merchandise is pretty lucrative, and it's one of the reasons why there are a number of entrepreneurs who want to open up shops in our city, in Craven County, and throughout North Carolina to sell this merchandise.
So what you're saying is that whatever you go in and take, they still can operate?
Yes, they have due process rights. They'll go to court. We'll see what happens on an individual account of a charge, but we may find ourselves back in the same store once again, and we repeat the process.
Okay.
Chief, I know you mentioned merchandise, but have there been any discoveries of currency involved?
Are we talking about counterfeit? Well, we have come across counterfeiting, but not necessarily linked to the same businesses that we're dealing with here.
Thank you.
Hey, Chief, if you can you give us an example of what type of merchandise is usually counterfeited around this area? I don't want to jeopardize any of your investigations or anything, so if you can, I understand.
So a great example would be Oreo cookies, for example. The particular merchandise that I'm referring to is a product that is heavily laced with CBD, which is a product that is legal but can only be obtained by a person over the age of 21. It is packaged in a way that looks exactly like an Oreo cookie. A child would know no different. To be quite candid with you, until I saw the packaging and was given information that this was not in fact an Oreo cookie, I would not have known any different. and God forbid you eat one of these things, I don't know what the impact would be for myself, but I know for a child, probably would not be a pleasant sight.
Wow. Thank you,
And that's
Chief.
just one example of many different versions of the counterfeit market out there.
Any other questions from the board?
If there's no more questions, Chief, I definitely want this to continue for the safety of not just children, of adults as well. I'll make a motion, sir, if there's no more questions. Okay. I make a motion to adopt a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a memorandum of understanding with the NC Anti-Counterfeiting Trademark Task Force.
Second. Have a motion in a couple seconds. I'll let the clerk figure out who that was. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Kinsey.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Alderman Prill,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Mayor Odham.
Yes. Motion carries.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Chief.
Item number 17 is to consider adopting a resolution designating agents for the 2022 Building Resilience in Communities Grant. Ms. Ostrom.
In October 2022, the city submitted a letter of interest to the North Carolina Division of Emergency Management for a FEMA Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Capabilities and Capacity Building Grant, also known as the BERC Grant. NCM invited the city to submit a full application for the BERC Grant. In December 2022, the city submitted the application requesting $200,000, which will be matched by the North Carolina Attorney General's Environmental Enhancement Grant in the amount of $150,000 for the restoration of the Duffy Field Canal project planning and scoping. As a next step in the process, NCM has requested the city to designate a primary and secondary agent through a resolution approved by the board. We're asking you to considering adopting a resolution authorizing Foster Hughes as primary and Kimberly Rose as secondary agents for the city of New Bern to execute the necessary documents for the FEMA BRIC 22 CNCB grant.
Does the board have questions on item number 17?
No, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt a resolution designating agents for the 2022 Building Resilience and Communities Grant.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Best.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Alderman Prill,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Mayor Odham.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 18, consider adopting a resolution expressing support of funding from the 2022 Assistance to Firefighters Grant and authorizing staff to present a budget amendment to cover the match. Chief McConnell.
Mayor, Board, do you have any questions about the current grant that we're looking at here? I think you have it before you. New Bern Fire Department entered a grant with Craven County Fire Association and 13 other fire departments. They were awarded the grant in August. With the old administration, the grant process we thought was going to be matched by the county, which it hasn't been matched for the city of New Bern. So we're asking for grant monies for the matching portion and for the grant writer of approximately $9,600 and some to move forward with this grant process. Can I answer any questions for the mayor and board?
Yeah. Explain to the board, if you don't mind, what this grant was going to purchase.
Yes,
and
sir.
the
So it's
importance
going
of it.
Yes, sir. So it's going to purchase new portable radios for us. These are good radios, but we're going to get better radios than this. Our current radio system is good, but we want to make it more endurable for the atmospheres that firefighters enter on a daily basis. There's going to be more resistance to water, heat, and all the elements that we enter, and a lot safer for us. Not only that, they will provide better communications for us within our county, because we have a dual band. When we operate here within the city, it's fine, but once our units and apparatus and personnel leave the city, we don't have the capabilities of always talking to our partners at the county level and the state level and even the federal level. if it's needed. So with this grant, and it will give us the ability to come more compliant with NFPA 1802 because we're an accredited fire department. So there's a lot of positives with this grant moving forward.
So what you're doing, you're asking us for money that you didn't budget in for this.
Correct, sir, we are, and we are sorry we didn't follow the process. It wasn't our intent, but once again, we thought that with the county's match, that we would have been involved in that, and the monies would have been received with no match asked from the city. And I believe also that if we received this grant, we had 2 years of spending it. And the prior administration, I think, thought that we could roll this into next year's budget and go through the grant process. But the county's moving forward faster with the grant, faster than we thought. Obviously, it was awarded to us, the association, and the grant writer obviously wants to get paid. So I think that's one of the reasons the process is moving a lot faster than it normally was.
So let me ask you this. There's 13 fire departments altogether that's involved in this grant, correct?
Correct, sir.
And you're number 14, actually, or are you?
I believe we're 13, not everybody.
Okay, so there's and the county's going to pay the match for all the 12 other fire departments, but they're not going to pay the grant and the match for the city of New Bern Fire Department.
That is correct,
Alderman
sir.
Astor, one thing I do want to clarify. I found out about this when the county manager called me, and he wanted to explain this to me. As you may or may not know, the county has fire service districts that are taxing districts, and so the county was able to use those funds for the matches for each of those volunteer fire departments. There's not a separate fire tax for the city of New Bern, and so that's why they didn't do a match with this. Also, this grant was applied for by a volunteer and a volunteer fire system, and they listed New Bern on here, so it didn't go through our grant process through our finance department. So that's why we're bringing this to you tonight.
So the county's using each individual district's fire tax money to pay for the match?
That's correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Just to, go ahead, Alderman.
So you're only asking for $8,290.
I believe what we're asking for, the match and the grant writer is $9,672.73. I believe it should be correct.
And how many radios will this purchase?
Sir, it will approximately 14 to 15 radios for us, which will outfit us somewhere around $75,000.
I understand the fire tax and the volunteer piece. Could you just maybe close the loop on Havelock? Is Havelock, I mean, they're in Craven County, they part of this, they have a full.
They decided to opt out of the grant, sir.
Okay, so they're not getting their
They are
portion
not.
paid for by the
No,
county,
sir.
they're not
They
participating?
didn't even participate.
Okay. And then the only other question I had, we've talked about radios many times on the board. I think we've purchased a couple different systems. Is this changing the actual system?
No, sir, it is not changing the system at all. It's just enhancing our capabilities at the end user and making the dual band, because the city's band versus the county bands are 2 different frequencies, and makes it capable to talk on both bands. Where there's a disconnect if we leave the city and try to talk with our agencies outside the cities, and when they come into the cities, it's going to better those operations.
Okay, what type of warranty are you going to get with this here?
It's under a standard warranty that we would have with the rest of our radios. We're not going from a different provider or anything else, so it will fall under our annual maintenance and fees and anything like that.
So it just falls right under the umbrella?
Yes, sir. It will fall right back under all the initial fees that we already, once again, we're just getting more equipment, better equipment for the grant.
So that means the next time around that you would include this into your budget?
Next year, yes, sir, and we're going to apply for that same grant to outfit us with better radios, too.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes, I do. I'm a little confused here. I thought the total was $988,000, and that's what you're seeking from the 13 fire departments, correct?
No, ma'am. It's divided by that 13 departments. So our portion that we have to pay for this is the match portion, and then the grant writer's fee, which comes out to $9,000.
I want to clarify, the interim chief, based on the invoice that we have in your agenda package, the total amount is $8,290.91 on an invoice. Now, that is a match for the city's part, and that's all the city would be responsible for in exchange for the radios.
Correct.
Thanks, sir.
Any more questions? Are we sure about the amount when we approve this? Because I know there seems to be some question. I want to make sure whatever we approve covers whatever the amount is.
In the agenda packet you have,
Yes.
Brenda, what is in that agenda? What page is that on the agenda packet?
let me look for the page number, but it is $8,290.91.
Say that again.
$8,290.91. That represents $1,381.82 for the grant writer's fee, and then $6,909.09 for the actual contribution, the match.
So the total amount of money that the fire department needs is $8,290.91.
That's correct.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve budget amendment for $8,290.91 so the fire department could purchase these radios.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Brinson.
Alderman Brinson.
Yes.
Alderman Prill.
Yes.
Alderman Royal.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Mayor Odham.
Yes, motion carries.
When are you expecting delivery?
We do not yet, sir. Working on the vendors right now for the radios.
I think you got to pay for it before you can get them delivered, right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, sir.
All right, item number.
Alderman
Sure.
Astor, just for clarification, and also to approve the resolution,
Oh,
because we don't have an actual
Yes.
budget amendment. If it's
okay. Approve the resolution then to
bring a budget
authorize
amendment.
$8,290.91 for purchase of the radios.
Mr. Attorney, you want us to revote on that?
Let's do, please.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the clarified motion. Let's have a roll call. Well, again, we'll start with Alderman Brinson.
Alderman Brinson.
Yes.
Alderman Prill.
Yes.
Alderman Royal.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Mayor Odham.
Yes, that motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay, item number 19 is to consider adopting a resolution authorizing the submission of an application for the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Program grant to aid the New Bern Rail Corridor Planning Study. Mr. Seaberg.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Board. Before you, requesting consideration on the next cycle of BRIC funding. We've submitted a letter of intent in early October. The sole purpose is to develop a plan of the rail corridor, specifically from the intersections of George Street and Dunn Street, traveling west to the edge of the city's corporate limits. It does include wards 1, 4, and 5. The purpose of that is we are looking at undersized culverts that are under the rail bed and developing a plan to improve the flow of the stormwater in that area. It obviously would include the resizing of those culverts that are inadequately sized. The anticipated cost for this project is estimated $200,000. There is a 25% cost match, which amounts to $50,000 that we would request for consideration. There are ways of, the cost share can be cash, donated, third-party in-kind services, materials, or combination thereof. And there is an option that we'll find out further on actual application if we qualify as economically disadvantaged rural community, which will reduce our cost share for this project. I am open if there are any questions.
Board have questions?
You said there'd be a cost share?
There is a cost share, yes.
And what amount was that?
That would be, right now, at 25%, it's $50,000.
Okay, of the 200,000?
Yes, ma'am.
But that's what the grant is, you're gonna request a grant for 200,000?
The grant total amount is for $200,000. So it'd be 150 with our match.
Chris, just for clarification, this is to request funding for a study that we have to have in order to ask for the actual grant? Is that?
This is a grant for the study.
Okay.
And then the intent is take the results of that study and apply for construction grants for the improvements.
So I know this is a really hard question, so I'm sorry to have to ask you, but do we have any idea what the likelihood is of us actually getting the grant to do the work?
For construction or
For construction, yeah. Because, I mean, we're basically being asked, in a nutshell, to spend $50,000 on a hope and a prayer that we're going to get the actual grant that would allow us to do the work. And I know we've had a lot of conversations about plans in the past. We've got some great plans, but you can't do anything unless you actually have the funding to do it.
Well, and one of the things we're seeing with a lot of the stormwater related is we've got to have those designs and plans in place before we can apply for a grant. And so we have been very successful in applying for construction grants, especially the Duffield Stormwater Project. We haven't seen that faucet turn off yet for those grants from federal agencies. So I think we've got a pretty good chance with our application process.
Okay. Does the board have questions?
Kind of a similar question to what the mayor is asking. You know, when we talk about construction and the railroads, is North Carolina Railroad or Norfolk Southern going to be participating in this study at all? You know, because they're going to have to approve the construction whether we get a grant or not.
We are intending on having them as a partner in this project.
So is there any way that we can get that partnership first? Because normally, from my experience in the last 15 years, we have a problem with the COVID right now that they won't even move on. The pipe is up this high, the water's this low.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually have to flood to reach the level to go through the pipe. So is it any way that we can go ahead and get the agreement from them first instead of waiting?
Well, the initial draft to the state, because we are, the state is the recipient of the grant, we are a subrecipient under them. That is, our first submittal to them is December 4th. So the intent on having this before you tonight is to cover that basis. We have made contact with NCRR, but have not received a response yet. But that is the intent, to have them. It's part of their infrastructure too, and we feel confident they'll come to the table and have some conversations.
Good luck.
Understood. It is a little concerning that we're going to outlay $50,000, and it could be in kind, like you said. It doesn't have to be $50,000 in cash, but you know, let's just say that we do this and we get an implementation grant essentially to do the project, and North Carolina Railroad says, "You're not touching my track," which is possible. So, do you know how much of the $50,000 is going to be in kind versus the outlay of cash? Any ideas?
I mean, our intent when we start developing the budget for this is gauge that. I mean, I feel confident if we can get that consideration under a disadvantaged community, that'll shave that 25% down to 10% obligation. So that's the goal. In my conversations with North Carolina Department of Public Safety staff, in their initial LOI review, letter of interest review, they did not catch that we were in that designation. We are to document that in our initial application to them so we can get that consideration.
Chris, can the match come from other grant funds?
Yes, it can be, we can use grant match funds.
Funds are currently not needed until we would receive a grant, correct? This is authorization to apply for a grant.
This is authorization to apply for the grant.
The deadline to apply for the grant is when?
The deadline, the final deadline, they have to have everything by the end of February to FEMA for consideration.
Okay, and estimated award date is?
The award day is likely, or award date timeframe is likely September, October of '24. But after that, it's very similar to what this 2022 break process is. There's certain reviews, historic, preservation, and environmental reviews. So they're expressing to us that the funding is not likely going to be available until October 2025.
Okay.
What was the December 4th date that you threw out there?
So with us being a sub-applicant for the state, we're working with them to polish up our application. So our initial submittal to them is the 4th. and we're going to work through the month of December to get everything appropriate.
Any additional questions? What's the pleasure of the board on item number 19?
I'm just very leery based on my past experience with Southern Railroad coming in to disrupt their tracks. You know, I don't feel good about it because when we had the problem over what is that canal we just expanded over there near Rose Street? Yes, that,
Canal.
when we did that canal expansion, they
Different
didn't
street.
want to do anything.
I will say, is this the same, is this North Carolina Railroad?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
So I will say that Alderman Brinson and Prill and myself had a meeting with them today about the depot. We've been talking about that thing for, I think, Attorney Davis said over 20 years now. It was probably the best meeting, I think, that we've had with North Carolina Railroad over the years. So if that's a sign of what could be here, I'm optimistic. But all we have to go on is the history that we have so far, and it hasn't been great when it comes to changing any of their infrastructure. So
That's when we had the flood trying to pump the water across the tracks.
Yeah,
They didn't even want to stop the train to let us pump water.
Yeah, but that ended up working out pretty good. The only thing you got to do is tell these people this is going to prevent flooding, and then I let them know real quickly that if the flooding did happen, because they didn't want us to pump the water across the track, it was going to be their fault. They put people out there to watch the train for us while we pumped across. So they've gotten, I mean, they're pretty good when it comes to flooding issues. They have been in the past. I worked with them through almost every hurricane, getting, permission to go across the tracks to do some pumping out and stuff. So, you just need
But we
to know.
give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, it's not gonna hurt anything. The only thing you're doing is asking permission to apply, correct?
That is correct.
Alderman Best?
Okay, that was when he just made that statement, we just asking to apply, because as the city manager said, the cost share of $50,000 only gonna take effect if the grant is approved.
In 25, correct?
Yeah.
And if the board accepts the grant, if it's awarded, so.
Okay.
Okay.
It's a pleasure of the board on item number 19.
Well, Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the submission of application for the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Program Grant to aid the New Bern Rail Corridor Planning Study.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Prill.
Alderman Prill,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Mayor Odham.
Yes. Motion carries. Thanks, Chris. Item number 20 is a review of stormwater projects for the last 5 years. Mr. Childs.
Good evening, Mayor, Board. We were asked to present the last 5 years of stormwater projects that are in progress and completed for the last 5 years. And that's where we started off with this time frame was really from post-Florence. So when we look at these numbers, this will be post-Florence work that we've got underway or completed. I tried to compress down the detail package that you received from those approximately 70 pages to just a little over a dozen for time, but if you do at any time have any questions about the detail pages, I'm available to answer those questions. So we started out and we had a real intent in the city overall to work on stormwater, either repairs or improvements that we noted from Hurricane Florence. So the way we've broken this down, and it's broken down this way in the detail sheet, so we've got the first section, which is public works stormwater projects, and that includes grant-funded projects that we're actively either doing or have completed to date during that 5-year period. We've also included in these numbers, to give a little perspective, what we have completed of the Florence Cat D work so far, and we do have several of the basins that will be bid in December, January, and February to complete that work. So that number will likely go up multiple millions of dollars as we work through the completion of those basins. Cat A, we have completed the majority of Cat A. There'll be some additional Cat A during the Cat D work that'll be accounted for. Then we have the Board of Aldermen ARP funded projects that were directly allocated from each ward for stormwater projects, and that is $2,860,142. And then we have some additional projects that are currently in project design, planning, or bidding, and that's another $4.7 million. So in the last 5 years, we have either completed or have in progress just over $21 million of projects, just to give us a little perspective of where we are. And that's a great effort, I think, post-Florence, of where we recognized deficiencies or we discovered damages within our system. So the 33 projects that we've done within the city, that's broken down by year, and you'll see these numbers and cost accelerating as we move through the next couple of years, because we've got grant packages that have gone through the design phase, which made us shovel ready, which will then precipitate us being able to receive grants for the actual construction funding. Chris was mentioning much of that in his prior agenda item. And this is just a small map here of the stormwater projects outside of FEMA that we have done throughout the city, just showing some locations of repairs, pipe replacements, bank stabilization within those areas. So to date, the FEMA Cat D, we're a little over 1.8 million, and I'll have that broken down on the next slide, and then the Cat D at 8.2 million. So the Cat D that we've done so far, we've completed Quarry 1 and Quarry 2 Cat D, so that's permanent work, bank stabilization, head walls, that types of work. I've also included in here Trent Village retaining wall, which was in the Trent River Basin, which was $624,000 to complete that. We have prioritized Trent being the next basin that goes for bid, so it'll be advertised in December, so we can go ahead and capture the rest of the Cat D in the FEMA funded work. For the Cat A, so within all the Cat A work, and I know we had the TRC consultant here to go over a lot of the Cat A work, 349 spots of specific location for debris and sediment removal, from 662 ditches or streams with a combined total linear footage of just over 25 miles that we remediated after the storm. And this is a breakdown of the Cat D cost associated with, the Cat A cost associated with each one of those basins, with the understanding that Rennie's, North Glen Burnie, Riverfront, Wilson, and Bryce's Creek were combined in that, and they will be bid in a package. They're smaller basins with not as much damage compared to the larger ones of Trent, Jenny's, and Jack Smith Creek, which are three of our largest basins. So we've got some additional work coming up. We're planning to advertise for bid the phase 2 and 3 of the Duffy Field Stormwater Project. Currently we have different funding sources for that, and approximately $4.3 million of funding for construction of that work. We also have the asset inventory grant, which we're actually meeting on site with the consultant tomorrow to look at 4 to 5 specific areas where we want more detailed survey work done of our entire drainage system. Much of this asset inventory will be focused on the older parts of town where we do not have new survey data. Lots of the newer subdivisions, we have the construction plans, we have the as-builts, but in a lot of the older parts of town we found we've got blind connections under streets with multiple drainage basins tied together where we're not really grasping the entire basin that's being serviced by a single outlet. So we've got areas that get overwhelmed for short periods of time during heavy rain because we have one outlet, but it may be servicing a larger drainage basin than we realize because 300 years of pipes in the ground. There are things connected that we're not aware of, but we're hoping to find that in this study. That's the phase 2, 3, and 4. Currently, 2 and 3 are funded. 4 is not, which are the park and recreation, actually fixtures within that plan. And then we get to the board allocated funding. We've got Trent Red Robin Road bank stabilization. So the contractor this week is actually finishing some punch list items on that one. Trent Road bank stabilization, which is actually right near the bypass, right beside Fleiss Bicycle Shop. They are just about done, just a little bit of cleanup that they'll finish this week, and we'll be completed with that. The Pinehurst Pump Station, the engineers are currently working on that and consulting with the pump manufacturers for that. Union Point, we've completed all that work. We installed new pipe in Union Point, replacing some old 4-inch yard drains with 15-inch pipe, storm pipe. And we also have a backflow preventer to prevent when we have increased northeast winds that floods the park for events. We can actually shut that outlet off, and we have a pump system in case there's any additional rain during the event. Hancock Street pipe replacement, we had the contractor actually got in finally to camera that pipeline. Not the findings we wanted to find, so we are going to be forced to replace that pipe. We had hoped we'd be able to line it with the lining system, but from the findings from this week of cammering that line, it looks like we're going to have to replace that entire block of stormwater pipe. The East Rose culverts, they are going through design right now with the gates. We have been in consultation with NCDOT for the North Hills drainage study, and this has got to do with the culvert under Simmons Street with some additional gates. Our consultants have turned their information over to the hydrology division of NCDOT, since that culvert is actually on Simmons Street, which is a DOT road. So we've got to get their input, and hopefully we're in conversations about getting some contribution of either labor or installation from DOT on that culvert once we get to that point. College Park drainage improvements is in the planning stage. The racetrack road culverts are included in the racetrack road improvements. And that meeting I have with Barnhill Contracting is for next week to get a notice to proceed date where they're going to mobilize. And so I'll be able to present that to you. So one thing I did want to point out here is the cost allocation, where we're getting this funding. So when we look at the overall cost, much of this has been FEMA reimbursable. Much of it has been the board allotted or allocated ARPA funding, where you allocated each one of your wards for stormwater projects. And then the next is the grant sources. So when we talk about grant sources, we're currently at over $8 million of grants that we have received for construction process. As we look at, and it's difficult when we ask for, as Mr. Seaberg asked for planning grants. But what we're finding is if we have the planning or the engineering grant in hand when there is available construction money, so we have a shovel-ready project, if we can get the funding through a grant agency, we are more likely to receive that grant. And that's where it's difficult to come ask for planning or surveying work or design work, and we don't get anything immediately. But what it does do is prepares us for the next grant phase where we're ready, and puts us at the top of the list for some of the grant funding.
George, just a quick question.
Yeah.
On the FEMA portion, does any of that include reimbursement? So where the city expended funds and then FEMA reimbursed us?
It's all reimbursed. It's all reimbursed. So the city has to spend those funds and then request reimbursement allocation from FEMA.
So just to kind of clear it up a little bit, that's not just $10 million that FEMA just gave us
Correct.
to do things.
That is
It's
correct.
things where we've spent the money locally and then they've reimbursed us.
Yes, and that is the same way with the grant funding. We have to actually do the expenditure and then ask for reimbursement of that.
Thank you.
But looking at the grant sources, and we're talking about railroad corridors and options for culverts on the railroads. We also have some grants that are, we're intending to apply for through other funding sources outside of a state or federal. So there's some new golden leaf grants coming out that are going to be up to $2 million of projects that we're hoping to utilize for 2 culverts that were identified in a 2018 drainage study. So we get back to the studies. We did one 5 years ago. Now that we have that, it puts us ahead of other requests from other municipalities trying to achieve that grant money. So right now there are grants available, and we're going to continue pushing. I think the number we're at over $22 million. It's significant for the town. Once we get the Cat D done, and I would estimate from the prior cost of Quarry 1, Quarry 2, we're probably going to be another $8-9 million on the Cat D work once we get done, total fruition of that. So, you know, we've got some large chunks still coming, and we feel like the improvements that have been done through the FEMA and through the ARPA work, and additionally through the grant funding, that we're seeing improvements in our drainage system. And we're talking day to day on just normal rain events. It really, we've had fewer calls, we've had fewer backups. And I think the AIA grant will identify some structural issues we may have in older parts of town that then we'll have to go back and look for grant money to go after. But we'll have it identified with that AIA study. And that's the importance of the studies, that, you know, leading up to applying for the grants for the construction.
Board have questions?
Yes, I do. This is Ken, I do know that it was said that, and I'm speaking on the ARPA funds, okay, that those funds had to be obligated by December of 2024, but don't have to be actually spent until 2026?
No, when we selected the revenue replacement,
Okay.
that opened it up so that it was basically coming out of unrestricted fund balance.
Okay.
So now we've assigned those for the ARPA fund, so you do not have to
Worry about the
independent
deadline
deadlines.
of spending
No.
those funds or entering into a contract or creating a contract?
Correct.
Okay, great. That was one of my questions. Okay, George, this question is for you. The East Road culverts.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You have now they are now joined with the Biddle Street project?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. The East Road culverts are standalone up near the East Road lift station, so that's a separate from that project. Yes,
All
ma'am.
right. So have you created any contracts or entered into any contracts on these two projects, the East Roads and the North Hills?
The East Roads and which one?
North Hills
Yes,
storm
ma'am.
drainage?
Yes, ma'am, we have.
So you,
We have, yes, ma'am, and that's where I was saying the conversation has now gone from the study information to NCDOT, so that would be for the North Hills, that's the Simmons Street culvert. And then we are in the kind of design section of the the East Roads culverts. But we also have in those packages that's included in the City of New Bern projects. We also have the East Roads Basin. So that is going out to bid. We've got design work to expand that basin. We also have a Golden Leaf grant for $250,000 to retrofit that basin where we're actually lowering the station, and that is all being designed. We should have that out in bid soon.
now, is that the basin that we
Yes,
met
ma'am, right
back in
beside the
June?
culverts.
Excuse me, is that the basin where we met back in June with TRC to discuss that? Is
Yes,
that the
ma'am.
basin
Yes, ma'am.
over by
Yes, ma'am. That's the East
Evergreen
Roads.
Cemetery?
Yes, ma'am,
Okay.
at East Roads, yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
Okay. And you, with the North Hills storm project, so NCDOT was amenable to joining in
That's
and
the conversation.
sharing some of the costs?
That's the conversations we're having right now. We're looking for some kind of partnership in that, but I can't speak to any, agreement at this time.
Okay.
But that's our intent.
Okay, all right. And the reason why I asked about if this, if those two projects were, you know, a contract had been created, or you're ascertaining a contract coming forth, because the last FEMA, not FEMA, but ARP funding spreadsheet that was submitted to us, those two projects were the only two on that spreadsheet that had not been.
Correct. And the difficult part with that is we currently have $300,000 of work that's gonna get bid right there at the East Rose Lift Station. So you've got the pump retrofit and the basin expansion going on at one time. If we implement another contract in that area, we're gonna have difficulty getting it done. So the lift station retrofit and the basin expansion need to come before the culverts. The culverts are usable now, but they'll be improved when we replace them.
What kind of time factor do you have with implementing this?
It's difficult to say when we're dealing with, and we're gonna bring up the railroad on one side, and we're gonna bring up environmentally sensitive areas. So everywhere we work in streams is got repercussions on the permitting side. So we've got the Division of Water Quality, we've got the Corps of Engineers that has regulations on this. So all of this has to go through environmental review, in addition to if we're joining the side of the railroad, where we have to work within, one, their requirements and their stipulations on product material, location of what we install. So the difficulty increases as we're in environmentally sensitive areas and as we get adjacent to the railroad tracks. Does that mean it's not achievable? No, ma'am. No, ma'am. We can certainly get this done.
All right, thank you.
Hey, George, the basin that we had that had the major overrun on it, and I think it was a Cat D project. Is it the Trent?
That's Trent, because we had the Trent Village retaining wall.
Okay. Have we closed that out, or started, or getting close to closing that one out?
No, I do not believe we're closing that one out yet, because we've got to actually do the rest of the Cat D work in that basin, which is being advertised for bid in December.
Okay. Thank you.
That's why we prioritize it, because we'd already overrun it with that one project.
Okay.
Mr. Childs, you made mention of the Trent Road project. Did you not say it's almost complete? And if that's the statement, how far are we away from completion?
On the, which one?
Red Robin.
On Red Robin.
Yeah.
The contractor, yeah, he's supposed to be here this week. I saw he had his excavator back on site today. So they're gonna finish a punch list. The construction inspector is gonna be on site tomorrow also while they do that. So we're gonna try to wrap up.
Percentage-wise, we are maybe
We're 99% done.
99?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's for both
Yes.
projects? on
Yes, ma'am.
Trent
Those
Road?
should be wrapped up in the next week.
Thank you.
Any other questions? George, I'll just make a comment that obviously this is a topic that we hear a lot about. And I think I was the one that requested this presentation be done because, you know, $22 million and change, that's real money that's been spent. And I was pleased to hear you say that we've seen results, because, you know, this is stuff that you don't really see. It's not a park, it's not a playground, it's not a fire station, but these are things underground that are very important. And I can tell you, we've had a few significant rain events since a lot of this work has been done. The call volume is certainly not what it used to be. It doesn't mean we have fixed everything. We're never going to fix everything. There's going to be places that when we get 3 or 4 inches of rain in a matter of a couple of hours, it's going to flood. But I will say that this water is moving out a lot quicker, and it's because of all this work. And again, for folks that we went through a little bit of heartburn in certain neighborhoods where we went in and did some excavation, and folks said, well, I didn't have a problem with water in my yard. Well, you may not have in your yard, but you were blocking up or slowing down water from progressing through the system upstream, and that has certainly helped. So for folks that may not have had a problem and you thought now you do have a problem, you actually helped other people. So I commend all the work that's been done, and we got to keep it up. It's going to be a constant maintenance issue, but I think we've done a great job so far.
And speaking of maintenance issue in the Pembroke community, is there a schedule for maintenance when it comes to the ditches?
we have our stormwater crews are in each, that they follow actually the loose leaf, when you see the loose leaf map. So the day that your area is in a loose leaf pickup area, the stormwater crew has their maintenance guys allocated to that area. So if there's a specific spot within the Pembroke community that is becoming a problem, if we're unaware of it, just have the resident call. They can call our office and report it, and we'll certainly have somebody out to that area.
Thank you. I'm sure you will be hearing from them shortly.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All right, thank you, Ms. Childs, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Item number 21, discussion of BP building change and scope of work. Mr. Hughes.
So, back during Hurricane Florence, the old BP building, which was used by Public Works as basically a storage building and a workshop by their staff, was substantially damaged. That building is located at 2602 Oaks Road. It's still standing to this day. So we've gone through several years of a process with FEMA to try and get reimbursed. They have finally awarded us $955,812.07 to rebuild that project. In our discussions, we have made some recommendations on some alternate projects. And so I want to cover those, have some discussions, and then see if we can get some direction on how we can move forward with this. So previously, we had discussed potential projects of an amphitheater at Mardi Marietta Park, a new fire station in West New Bern, a fire truck, a grounds maintenance facility for parks and recreation, a public works facility, and then a skid steer mulcher for public works. So I'm going to talk about each one of those, and if you have any questions while I'm going through this, please don't hesitate to ask. So the big thing we saw with the amphitheaters, we did a concept plan for this back in 2018, and that's what we have as a concept. We have no construction drawings, and at that time when the master plan was completed for that park, the estimated cost was $1 million. Current estimated cost by staff accounts are approximately $2 million, and that does not account for national acts coming into New Bern, and we have had discussions about possibly bringing bigger acts into New Bern and possibly leasing the amphitheater out to promoters, nationwide promoters, to operate that amphitheater. The biggest roadblock we have found in talking with some of the national promoters is they like to do a market analysis to see if the area would support a tour that they would put together. And in order for them to do that, they really like to see a track record. New Bern doesn't really have a track record. This area doesn't have a track record of big concerts here, so that's one of the issues that we've had. And then they also like to see an amphitheater in place before they make a decision. So we're kind of putting the cart before the horse on this. In the initial plan for an amphitheater at Mardi Marietta Park, we were looking at a basic structure. The area can accommodate approximately 7,000 people. It's a large area out there. And so I think the future is bright for an amphitheater out there, but for these funds, it's probably not going to be the most appropriate thing. The next thing was a fire station. We know that West New Bern area is going to be a location for a fire station as the West New Bern community continues to build out. Fire rescue staff has been working on a concept plan for a new fire station. We haven't brought that to the board for discussion yet, but that should be coming before the board in the coming months. We know a new fire station, based on comparative costs from what other cities are building fire stations for, going to be about $4 to $6 million, and it's going to take, in reality, 2 to 3 years to build. So that's a project that's on down the road as well. So it's not necessarily an appropriate use of this $900,000+ for this. Then we looked at the fire truck, and so during our budget process, we did include one fire truck in our budget. We included $800,000 in this year's budget. Then we also included approximately $550,000 to refurbish a 21-year-old truck. And during our budget discussions, we talked about the possibility of, instead of buying one fire truck, buying two. And at that time, I said, when we get pricing, we can come back to the board and get pricing. If the board at that time wants to purchase two trucks, we can do that. We have received the most recent prices for a new fire truck, and for one truck, the cost is basically $986,661 before a discount if it's paid in full. When we check with FEMA, FEMA does allow the purchase of a fire truck. Their only caveat is if we sell it at the end of use, which could be 20, 25, 30 years, depending on how it's used, if we sell that, then those funds would have to go back to FEMA. To give you an example, the most recent fire truck we sold was probably between $10,000 and $15,000. So that would go back to FEMA.
But if you never sell it?
If you never sell it, you never have to repay FEMA. Okay?
So,
And that,
Foster,
Yes.
before you move forward about, now you mentioned about the fire station, and I was one that wanted a temporary fire station on the west end.
mhm.
But, you know, after receiving information from staff and, you know, the delays with the NCDOT 43 corridor that's pushed back until 2025, and who knows, it may even be further, you know, that's when I decided, you know, that wouldn't be a smart ask of me to this board. I just want to let you know that. But now, I do have some concerns with the fire truck, the refurbishing of the fire truck. And that's $350,000 that we're gonna refurbish this truck, but we're not gonna have a temporary fire department. So that was a concern for me. I just wanted to input that while you were talking about the fire truck and the fire station. Okay?
Absolutely. So then we talked about the grounds maintenance facility. If you go out to Glen Burnie Park, Parks and Recreation has their grounds maintenance facility right there on the right side. It's right there at the wastewater treatment plant. And it is a very old facility. It is a small space, and that division of Parks and Recreation does put out an extraordinary amount of work for the facilities that they work out of. And so we talked about the possibility of expanding that. And originally, when we first started talking about what could we do with these funds, and this was a few years ago, we talked about taking Public Works, building a new facility outside Water Resources. At that time, we estimated that would be about $1 million to do that. And this is how inflation has changed things. Most recent cost estimates we got was about $3.5 million to duplicate what Public Works currently has. But overall, the goal was to basically switch Parks and Recreation over to Public Works, build a new facility for Public Works. So based on funds, that's just not another viable option. Then had a discussion with staff about a skid steer mulcher for Public Works and solid and the Stormwater Division. The cost for that is approximately $150,000, and that's something that could be budgeted in next year's budget if the department makes the recommendation for it and the board approves that. So based on these projects, my recommendation at this time is to purchase an additional fire truck. The amount of time it takes from the time we purchase a fire truck until it's received is approximately 2 years. Happy to answer any questions. If there are other projects that you would like us to evaluate and discuss, happy to do that at this time.
I'd like to backtrack to the amphitheater and the master plan for Martin Marietta. With the master plan, with the exception of the amphitheater, how close is Martin Marietta to being fully realizing the master plan?
So that master plan, in reality, could be done in many, many, many phases. We've completed one phase of that. We have spent with city funds and grant funds approximately $700,000. We have not applied for any other funding for grants for Martin Marietta Park yet because the next project obviously for Parks and Recreation is the Stanley Recreation Center. So many millions of dollars to actually complete Martin Marietta Park and many, many years to complete that.
Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify, when you said your recommendation is to buy an additional fire truck,
right.
These are all replacement vehicles.
Replacement vehicles, that is correct.
Okay.
And I will say another thing, no matter what we do, if the board gives direction on a replacement project, the process is we have to request a change in scope of work with FEMA. That's not something that takes place in 30 days. It could take 3 months, 6 months. FEMA is on their own time frame, so it's not like we could go out and do this project immediately. It's going to take a little bit of time for our consultant to put the information together, to submit to FEMA, and then we would hear back from them. But regardless, if we do a change in scope of work, we still have to take down the existing BP building. We've got to do asbestos abatement on that, and then we have to properly dispose of it according to FEMA guidelines. So we estimate the appropriate cost being approximately $20,000 to do that, which would come out of the allocated funds from FEMA.
Number one, I think we should proceed just as quickly as possible in tearing that old building down. You're talking about an eyesore, so we need, in my opinion, that building needs to go as quickly as possible. I've been on this kick in the past several months about activities in New Bern, and I know the mayor and I have talked about it. This is a perfect opportunity with this funding that we have to do something to entertain kids in this city. There is nothing in this city for young people to do other than to go downtown and drink if you're of age. But the younger kids have nothing to do. You can't go to the movie theater but so many times. I'm not against any of these projects. I think a lot of these, like the skid steer, I agree with you, is something that can be budgeted for. Just yesterday, a project popped up that I talked to the mayor and the city manager about that might be interested in the project as well. But I'm just not in. I would love to utilize this money to do something to entertain our kids. And I'm not sure what, a skate park maybe? I don't know. I don't know how many kids do that anymore, you know. I know it was on one of the top of your list of things that you wanted to build. But it's just, you know, we've got to have something to entertain kids.
And I'll make a comment about entertainment for kids. While the skate park does fit the niche for a certain part of the population, I don't think it's going to hit everyone that you're talking about in terms of family-friendly activities for a variety of kids of all ages. And you know, we have had conversations about a trampoline business or laser tag, a combination of things in one building. And as we start talking about it, we talk pretty quickly. You know, even if we put a red iron metal building up, 10,000 square foot, it's going to cost $1 million for that building. And what we've seen with a lot of those structures, it's 25 to 30,000 square feet or bigger with all the components they put in those. So then when we start looking at, and I'm just telling you, I'm being
I understand exactly what you're saying, Foster, but why can't we use some, I know we probably can't use this money for incentives for somebody to do something, but we can substitute it for money that we're going to buy, like a fire truck with, and use those funds something. We need to find some way or another to incentivize someone to come in this city and build a bowling alley, a trampoline park, or something like that for our children to do. I mean, we just need to get somebody working on it and try to get out there. I had a conversation with a contractor not too long ago about a piece of property that he owns over in the Carolina Colors area, and he said he would love to build a bowling alley over that way. He thought it would be a great thing to do, but just not interested in this state of his life to do something like that. You know?
What I can tell you is I've had the community and economic development manager reach out to a variety of franchises. There are a lot of franchises that do trampoline camps and things like that to find out to get a franchise for certain companies, what are the demographic requirements they have to see, in reality, would something like that work in New Bern based on the research that they've done? So staff is working on that to help us along a little bit more with that.
Well, I just think a lot of thought needs to be put into what we can use this money for. And I think a lot of thought needs to be put into utilizing it for young people in this city. I'm a firm believer, if a kid plays all day, he sleeps all night.
You get Alderman Kinsey, then Alderman Best.
Oh, so what is that building worth out in Bernie Park that Parks and Rec own now? If they would, the building that they have for the storage and vehicles and trailers, what is that building worth?
So they've got 3 buildings out there. One is a wood shop that's out in the woods near the shelters. Then there are 2 that are side by side as you come in on the right-hand side. One of them is a wooden structure, and that's basically where they store some landscaping chemicals, and there's a little storage. And then there's a metal building. The worth of that building, it's going to be $100 a square foot right now. And I think that may be about a 2,500 to 3,000 square foot building.
So what I'm asking is that if we can look at selling that building and moving to where Public Works is, and then look into to see what you sort of given us a number just now on building out there, the water treatment plant. Have you put any of those numbers together and seen what we come up with?
For a new building?
Yes, for Public Works and moving Parks and Rec building
So if we were to look at the existing Public Works facility and move that over to Water Resources, create a new campus for them, and then bring Parks and Recreation over to take the place of where Public Works is now, we're looking at about $3.5 million.
And if you were going down the road like we oftentimes do to say if we make some moves and consolidate and maybe sell what's over at Glimmering Park, I don't think it's going to be very marketable.
It's not.
Next
You
to the
just
waste
said
treatment plant.
Yeah, you just said it. Yeah.
And eventually at Glen Burnie Park, Water Resources is going to want to take that area over with their future expansions at some point.
Right.
We know that's going to come at some point as the need continues to arise.
Just reaching out, trying to figure out a direction that would be feasible for us.
Alderman Best?
And I spoke to Foster briefly about this BP funding, and I agree with Alderman Astor that BP station needs to be demolished. It is an eyesore. But I have, which is not included within Foster's request here, the forward he's given us, I'm wanting to use some of that money, all of that money, or whatever the case may be, for getting, there are 4 streets that I have asked for in the past that needs repaving. And I'm wanting to use some of that money to repave those streets. And the streets are Alabama Avenue, Lincoln Street, Hillmont Road, and there was one other, what was it? There was one other street. I'll think of it in a few minutes. It was Beaufort Street, where that's the street. Those streets are horrible. Now, not one of us board members or you, Mayor, want to have to travel down that street daily, back and forth daily down that street in the condition that those streets are in. Now, I know that we took in our budget, when we talked about our budget, when it was in budget, we took $200,000 from the sidewalk projects and we put it over into the streets resurfacing project, which brought that project up to It was $400,000, and it moved it up to $600,000. Now, all of that money is already spent for this budget year. That $600,000 is already spent for 3 streets, and I'm not gonna name the streets because as I travel down those streets, there's a dire need for those streets to be repaved. But that money is already spent. So here now, I have to look at another year, 2, 3, before I can get these streets paved. So with this money, I feel that that would be the right way to go to pave these streets for our citizens that travel down those streets daily. If additional money is left after, you know, the projects for the 4 streets, or the monies are calculated, and if it's not gonna spend the rest of that $955,000, I'd like for that. Additional parking is needed for the Pleasant Hill Community Center. When there are events there, citizens are having to park on the street, on that highway, and that is very dangerous. This is what I'm asking this board to take into consideration, and I hope that you agree with me that this money can be spent this way for paving those streets, something that our citizens deserve. And going back to the fire truck, we was gonna allot $350,000 to refurbish that fire truck as a truck that would be used for the Pleasant Hill temporary fire station. But I'm not asking for a temporary fire station because I see now that that is not the practical way, that is not a smart ask for us to spend the taxpayer and citizens there by putting in a temporary fire station when I know a need for a bigger fire station is going to be needed on that west end of New Bern. We got warehousing projects still building. We got Lake Tyler still building. We got future Craigborn Forest, and we got the 43 connector. We'll need a bigger fire department at that time. So I'm not going to speak anymore about a fire department because I do know that at that point in time, if I'm here on this board or whomever's on this board, that a bigger fire station is needed there. But I just want this board to know, I am advocating for these 4 streets to be paved for our citizens, and that's where I want this BP money, the remaining balance after the $20,000 is taken out, but the remaining $935,000, if it takes that much, to pave these streets.
Alderman Astor.
You know, Barbara, with all due respect, George could probably share with you the list of the streets that I sent him that I think need to be paved as well. There's streets all over New Bern that's in desperate need of being paved.
Right.
And I would love to have a city park or a community building in my ward. We don't have a city park. You don't even have a city park out in Bob, you don't have a city park in your ward either. So, I mean, you know, there's all kinds of needs.
Sure is.
Actually, we could sit here and discuss this all night long. And I think we all should think about it a little bit and come back with some better suggestions, because I don't like any of these suggestions.
Can I ask a question, Ms. Hughes? Can the FEMA money be used for repaving streets?
It can. There could be some issues. If it's in a flood area, FEMA may deny it. If there has to be fill, FEMA has to certify where that fill comes. Anything that we decide to do, it's going to go through a stringent screening process by FEMA. So we can talk about a variety of projects. At the end of the day, it's going to be up to FEMA to determine what's going to be appropriate use of that money.
Anybody else have any comments?
Not unless you're going to let the kids play in the street, because I think we need something for the children to do in this community. That's all I've got. But I do think that we need to think about it a little bit more. I've got a project that we're going to be presenting sometime in the very near future that we might want to use some of the money for.
So my parting comment on this is, as you said, Alderman Astor, we need to do something quick. but we also don't need to hastily make a decision. The fire truck that you're talking about is already planned to be purchased, correct?
That's correct.
So with FEMA funding being restrictive, when you talk about roads, it can't be in the flood zone, there's other projects and things that they may or may not approve. They will approve a fire truck. We're gonna have to buy the fire truck anyway, we're gonna have to pay for the fire truck. So my thought process with the fire truck is, we're gonna get it anyway. If you use this funding for that, doesn't mean that you can't take this funding that was gonna be allocated for that fire truck and spend it on something else that doesn't have any restrictions, which gives us that flexibility. This would move the ball down the road, and that would be my first choice, because I think that's the easiest one. My second choice is, if we use the objective street study and survey that was done, if we start at the top and go through that list of the streets that's been prioritized, and we spend the $956,000 on that, I'm all for paving streets with it. But it's gonna be, my vote would be for the objective list of streets, not ones that the board wants to allocate for. And there's nothing, I don't fault Alderman Best at all for what she's doing, but for every 4 streets that she has, everybody else probably has 4 streets too. So.
Yeah, well, I just look at it from a perspective of, if we're gonna have $600,000 each year in our paving project for resurfacing, then we're gonna categorize the streets that needs paving based off of that, what is it, the street?
Survey.
The street survey? Is that what you're saying, the street survey? Then, I don't have a problem with that, but I want each one of you that don't live within these areas of the streets that I just mentioned, I would like for you to just ride down those streets, and then you can see for yourself. Just ride down the street and you see for yourself. So that's where I want to put this money. I am with Alderman Astor as well. I think our kids need something to do. We do need some facilities here to accommodate our children, and also, I'm not for putting this money in a Martin area park, because our citizens don't live in parks, but they do drive on our streets. So that's where I want this money to go. But however this board see, whatever your conviction may be, or how you feel that you want this money, because we all have an opinion and we all want what we want, but I'm just advocating for these streets.
Does the board want to take action on item number 21?
I would like to suggest we table it, give it some thought, according to Alderman Astor, and revisit it.
And if the board has any topics that they would like to, if it's kid-friendly amenities, we could start looking at those types of things and come back. So if we talk about roads, we can analyze that as well.
Could I make the suggestion we table it to the December 12th meeting, so we have a deadline, so we can shoot for a goal of making a decision?
That
I
sounds
want
right.
to throw this in before you make the,
Sure.
we don't lose your train of thought, lose the train of thought. We can split the money down the middle and do half and half. We could do that as well. That's just a suggestion.
Sure.
Okay?
So you're saying do 2 projects instead of just one?
Yeah, we could do 2 projects, so everybody get a chance to get some of the skin in the game.
What did you say again, Mayor?
I would recommend we table table decision on item number 21 until our December 12th meeting.
Do we need a motion for that?
I think that would be appropriate.
Well, I would like to make a motion. Excuse me, let me interrupt that thought. I would like to get a copy of that street survey and let all of us take a look at what has been prioritized as the various communities for streets repaving. Okay. I would like to make a motion that we table number, what was it?
21.
Item number 21 until the December 12th meeting for further consideration.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Foster, is there anything preventing the city from moving forward with remediation on that property?
No,
The demolition
there's not.
of the building, the
And
parking lot, or the concrete?
there is not, and we are going to move forward with that.
Okay.
Are we gonna do that ourselves?
Yes, we typically do that. We can't do the asbestos abatement on that. We normally contract out for that, but we will take care of everything else.
Okay.
And let's put a lot up for sale.
And the funding that FEMA has awarded to the city for that property, do we have to expend funds and get reimbursed by them?
Yes, we do.
Same process
Yes,
as
sir.
anything else?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all those that are in favor of the motion to table to 12:12, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the decision will be tabled to 12:12. Item number 22, consider adopting a budget ordinance amendment for FY 23-24. Ms. Ostrom.
This budget ordinance amendment will roll the purchase orders that were outstanding as of June 30th, 2023. It also amends the general and solid waste funds to recognize revenue of $141,143 from the solid waste disposal state distribution revenue that continued to be recorded in the general fund since 2019 when the solid waste fund was created.
Wait a minute. Say that again. I think I missed something.
So this budget ordinance amends the, for the rollover POs. So at the end of June 30th, there were POs that were outstanding. Those were commitments and obligations that we made. And we didn't receive those things, or the services weren't
So
necessarily.
you're saying they were put in the wrong fund? They was put in the wrong account?
As for the solid waste part, yes. So in 2019, the solid waste fund was created, and the revenues that were for the state distribution, the solid waste disposal state distribution revenue, that one was recorded, continued to be recorded in the general fund. We found that during a internal audit, followed it through, it went back to 2019. So
How did that happen?
through a template. So years ago, when they created the template of, recording that revenue, it was in general fund when solid waste was within the general fund. And then when they created the new fund, the solid waste fund, that template did not get updated. So we're just transferring
Somebody wasn't watching the door.
141,000 over a 5-year period.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They wasn't watching the door. Somebody wasn't watching the door.
It's a very small amount, and it was deposited into the general fund, yes. And so we had to transfer it back. So we're making the
But
books
who
right.
watches the door to see that every account that comes in goes into the right account? Who checks that?
Well, I can't speak for prior to me, but what I can say is that as we've reviewed, certain areas, you review and assess, you have to take a look at on $150 million, if it's, not everything can be looked at that time, and we've been slowly going through and
In 2018, the audits, they didn't even catch it. They went to sleep.
No.
Yeah, Alderman Kinsey, those audits, that's why the annual audit, to me, it's just, you got to do it because you're required to do it, but they check the box oftentimes. They don't do a deep dive into things like this.
There's certain
typically.
things that they have to do. It's all based on, like I said, the materiality, and this is very small in the bigger picture. It's just not a material amount. I'm glad we caught it. We put it in the right fund.
Who caught it?
Tanya Harms, our revenue
Who?
senior accountant.
Senior accountant.
She manages the revenue. She was doing a report, I believe.
Do
in
you
this
check
system.
behind her?
I'm sorry?
Do you check behind her?
Our
I'm just
account-
asking questions. I'm new at this.
No, that's okay. So
I'm just trying to find my way.
there are multiple layers of approval, and one of our accountants, accounting tech twos, enters the revenues based on that template, and then she approves it, and then it goes through another approval process. So I don't necessarily see it directly. It's kind of,
But you're their boss. Seem like you would
I
check
see it
behind
at
there.
at a higher level. I'm looking at larger numbers.
Okay.
But during the internal audit that we did with solid waste, we were able to find it.
Okay.
Well, overall, at least you found it, and it was still in the general fund.
Oh, yeah.
I would venture to say that if someone spent all day, every day, looking in every department, you will find something similar to this. It's part of the job essentially, but I'm glad you found it, so. What's the pleasure of the board on item
Glad you
number?
found it too.
What's the pleasure of the board on item number 22?
Mr.
Mayor, I'll
I'd like-
make a motion to adopt a budget ordinance amendment for fiscal year 2023-24.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Royal.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Alderman Prill,
Yes.
Mayor Odham.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 23, consider adopting an ordinance to amend the Stanley White Recreation Center Project Fund. Ms. Oakstrom.
So the Stanley White Rec Center Project Fund, it was established on July 11, 2023, in the amount of $13,180,400. This included estimated debt proceeds of $5,173,751. Since the debt proceeds actually totaled $10 million, the remaining proceeds of $4,826,249 is being recognized through this amendment, so that we're covering all funds.
It's a pleasure of the board on item number 23.
Mayor,
I'll make a motion to adopt an ordinance to amend the Stanley White Recreation Center Project Fund.
second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Astor.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Alderman Prill,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Mayor Odham.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 24 is appointments. The only one I'll show, Alderman Kinsey, you have one for the Planning and Zoning Board.
I'm still looking.
Okay. I'm sorry, does anybody else have any appointments I didn't know? Okay. Item number 25, Attorney's Report.
Nothing report tonight, Mayor.
City Manager's Report.
Nothing tonight, sir.
New business, we'll start with Alderman Prill.
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I would like to make a motion that the city and Temple B'nai Shalom get together to agree on a location for the installation of a menorah for this holiday season.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion?
Question.
Sure.
I don't have a problem with us getting together and discussing it, but my feelings are if this should be on city property, not put on city property.
Why? Because we have
Because-
an ordinance. What kind of ordinance do we have?
Because, and I wish this had been brought up when the citizens was here, because when we had this same problem come before us with the Union Point Park,
Thank you.
when a citizen wanted to put up where that a storyboard was put up, and we as a board, we voted on that moving forward, that we would not erect, install, or whatever, anything into our city park. Am I correct, Mr. Hughes?
You are correct.
So that's why I wanted to ask the question that I don't have a problem with it being put anywhere as long as it's, or we, don't be put on city property. That's just my take on that.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the respect that most of you showed. I was actually going to make a comment that I appreciate the majority of the speakers that spoke was very respectful, and we appreciate that. The few that walked out that had parting words, you didn't really help your case. I will just say that. So the board will continue to deliberate on the item.
Well, many years ago, and I don't know how long ago it was, I suspect that it's been many, many years, a decision was made to allow for holiday decorations to be put on city property. At that point in time, the barn door was open, and a policy was set to allow for decorations, which I would say most people recognize as being a religious connotation to it, Christian religious connotation behind these decorations. So the city has established a policy. All I'm suggesting is that we move forward with that policy and allow another decoration, if you will, or an icon to be put up during the same holiday period.
The motion was the city and the temple get together to discuss a location. A location. Is that correct?
Yes, because Union Point Park has been mentioned, but it would not have to be at Union Point Park. Maybe there's another location that it could be set. So I'm leaving it up to the two parties to discuss, to try to decide on an appropriate location. Could end up being Union Point Park, I don't know.
So just, I want to get a little bit of clarification. When you said the city get together with the temple, who from the city? I think we probably should specify that. Is it going to be staff? Is it going to be a select member of the board? Who did you all have?
It would be staff. It would be
Okay.
staff.
If I may ask a question, based on your motion, does that include discussion on the menorah itself, whether the city would be to purchase or to construct that as well? So we'd like it to be clear on that as well, so we understand.
Let's defer to, if you don't mind, to attorney. When we talk about ordinances, Alderman Prill mentioned an ordinance, then we mentioned the latest version of the ordinance. Give us clarity tonight, please, as far as
Yes, ma'am, this issue
ordinance.
has nothing to do with our local ordinances. This is a constitutional matter, separation of church and state, it's the establishment clause within the First Amendment. And the legal conflict that comes up with these issues is whether or not a government can promote a particular religion. And we have case law going back decades and decades. In fact, one of the speakers mentioned a U.S. Supreme Court case from the late 80s where the Supreme Court upheld a local government displaying a very large Christmas tree and a large menorah. It had a particular signage around it. All these cases are very fact-specific. This area is a hotbed of litigation. So the more closely you can follow the fact pattern of a case that's been upheld, the safer we are from a legal perspective.
Did everyone understand that?
I think so.
Let me say it more simply. We don't have an ordinance that specifies how we celebrate the holidays. We have an ordinance a resolution that the board adopted not to add any additional fixtures to Union Point Park. That is something that we have in place. You can change that as a board. That's your authority. So what we're talking about is how the board wants to view adding additional holiday symbols to the current symbol that's in the park. That's the legal question that you're grappling with, or that I'm worried about as you think about how you want to celebrate the holidays and the various groups that can or should be included in that process. It is your political decision, and I'm reflecting on the legal issues that you might land on to keep the city as safe as possible.
Thank you.
Attorney Davis, my question, and I've done a little research on this, there's been some case law that says a menorah is not necessarily considered a religious item, it's considered a secular item.
That's right.
If that were the case, I would probably be very apt to supporting this. My concern is the slippery slope. This is where I look to you. If this is a religious item, and it's hard to say that it's not, when a temple is asking for it, and we've had members of clergy that's asking for it. So for me, that's where I'm torn, because personally, I'm fine with it. But if this is somehow considered a religious fixture, a religious item, I believe that if this were to be approved, we're going to have multiple requests for other items, such as a manger scene, to be put in Union Point Park, or wherever this may go. That's my issue with it.
Yes, sir, and that's why there are so many cases on this very point, is reasonable people disagree about splitting those various hairs. I can show you cases that come out on either side of that issue. The one thing I can point to is the case from the late 80s, where the court concluded by 6-3 vote that a Christmas tree and a menorah, and it was a 45-foot Christmas tree and an 18-foot tall menorah, with a message from the mayor, a holiday greeting message from the mayor that was non-denominational. The court viewed that as a symbol of holiday decorations and not a religious symbol. In that same case, they ruled against the same city having a creche in their city hall. They found that was a religious symbol that was unconstitutional, but the tree and the menorah together were not. And there are cases and cases where people take a creche and add candy canes and wreaths and try to disguise it all as holiday symbols, and sometimes they win and sometimes they lose. I'd prefer not to be in a game that's winning or losing because it's very expensive. So that's why I mentioned to you, whatever idea you land on, let's try to pair that with a case that we can point to that is as analogous as possible. And I'm also very happy, too, to reach out to the few cities that were in that presentation and speak with their city attorneys to see what their thought process was. I think I saw Asheville and maybe Charlotte had tangled with this. So I'm happy to reach out to them to reflect on what their thinking was.
So back to the motion that's on the floor. I don't have a problem having that discussion, but I don't think it should be put on staff to do that. This is not going to be a staff decision. This is going to be a board decision. So 3 people from this board need to be involved with that conversation. And if the motion were to change to reflect that, I would support the motion. But I can't support it. This is not a staff decision. I think this is why we may be in the situation we're in now, is because in the past, staff has made some decisions that were outside of their purview. If you include 3 members of the board, I don't have to be one of them. I'll be happy to be one of them. But if 3 members of the board are included, then I would support the motion.
So, if we were to approve this, are you saying we're opening up the door for all religiouses to come forward and say, we would like our symbol to be there as well?
Well, one could forecast that problem, yes. That could happen to you, and then you've got to tangle with that. But I'm reflecting on it one step at a time. There are cities that will designate areas and say, this is the city tree, and that's the area where other folks can celebrate with their symbols and celebration, figures, and they can be corralled in a similar area. So that way, everyone has a chance to participate in the process, and it's all inclusive. That would be an option.
Well, I'll make one comment. I'll go ahead and go on record regardless of what the decision is of this board. I am adamantly opposed to using public funds to buy those types of religious symbols. So I know that may have been part of your motion or not, but I'm opposed to it.
Coincidentally, I must add that.
How does that fit with all of the decorations that the city puts up on staff time? It's has been purchased by the city.
Yeah, but it's not
So
religious.
public funds have
You
been
and I
spent.
have 2 different perspectives of the Christmas tree not being a religious symbol, so.
As the mayor pointed out, it's a very fine line between looking at it from a religious standpoint and looking at it from a secular standpoint. And I agree with it. It is. And that's why I made the comment that a decision was made years ago to establish a policy. It is a religious decorations. I mean, you can cloud it however you want. It's a holiday decorations. It's Christian-based, so it's religious. So that door has been opened. We're just now, and maybe previous boards have tried to wrestle with this. I don't know that. But it's here before us now.
I appreciate your
We
opinion.
need to
We've
make
heard
a
it before.
decision, one way or another. And yes, is it potentially opening it up to other? Absolutely, it is. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. We'll have to deal with it. Or, as the city attorney, mentioned, maybe what we have to look to in the future is identifying a spot, city property. And that can be used by everybody, including the city with the decorations that we have in the park and down at the traffic circle. Maybe we need to change our perspective as to what we've been doing for a number of years and step back from it and look at it objectively. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Question, we raised the issue of, I think it was Alderman Best, that we established an ordinance. When was that?
There's a resolution.
Resolution, I'm sorry. That was recent, correct?
Yes.
And so it's not looking at the past or years ago.
It was.
This was
So,
recent.
It was this board, for
I
sure.
do want to clarify, I brought a policy before the board a little more than a year ago, and at that time, the board did not want to adopt that policy that addressed markers and plaques and monuments and parks, but the direction that I heard that night was that you weren't planning on addressing that. And if someone did approach the city about that, we would poll the board to get their opinions, and then, of course, those entities always had the option to come to petition citizens if they wanted to make that request to the board themselves. So there is no policy that the board's adopted.
And just to be clear, you polled the board on this issue last year, maybe?
It was earlier this year.
Earlier this year, and it was 7-0. We were not in favor of moving forward with any additional items. Okay.
That's correct.
So we do have a motion and a second on the floor. As a reminder, Ms. Clerk, would you mind sharing that with us again? It's been a little while.
Sure. For the city to get together on a location with the temple, on a location for the installation of a menorah for this holiday season.
That was a motion by Alderman Prill and a second by Alderman Royal.
That's correct.
I don't remember that. It's to have a conversation
Okay.
is what I second, to have a conversation with the temple and with the board.
I can go back and listen to the tape, but I was typing as he was talking, so I typed, get together to agree on a location for the installation of a menorah for this holiday season.
Was that your motion, Alderman Prill?
You withdraw your second?
Huh?
You gonna withdraw your second?
No, I still want the conversation. I'm stuck on that part, the conversation. And you suggested 3 aldermen meeting with the group to have a conversation.
Correct. I think the motion would need to be amended to include that. If
2 paths forward, yes, Mayor, you're reading my mind. One path is that Alderman Prill can amend his motion, or, since it's already got a second, you can vote on that motion, see what the outcome is. If it doesn't pass, reflect on language that might pass.
Would you like to?
Well, if we vote on my motion, and if a majority of the board approves the motion, then staff has its direction. Mayor, what you suggested of 3 board members being involved in that as opposed to staff simply means that a decision would have to come back to this board to be ultimately acted
Oh,
on.
well, the decision's coming back for this board regardless. I mean, I don't think staff has the authority to make a decision. If they meet with the temple and the staff agrees with the temple, the board's gonna have to make a decision.
Well, I think the
Right.
motion is to allow it to be located.
Oh.
And the precise location determined by
Okay,
staff.
well, if that's the case, I am an absolute no. That is not a staff decision. I'm not putting that on the staff. We were elected to make tough decisions, not our staff.
Call for the question.
Got a call for the question for the motion? Let's have a roll call vote, starting with Alderman Kinsey.
No.
Alderman Kinsey,
No.
Alderman Best,
This is a vote to get with the temple and someone from the city, get with the temple and discuss a location where the menorah needs to be, would be placed,
Will be placed.
will
Will
be
be.
placed. See, I can't agree with that, no.
Alderman Brinson,
No.
Alderman Prill,
Yes?
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Astor,
Based on it being including staff and not the board members, I'll have to vote no.
Mayor Odham.
No.
Mayor,
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to, and help me out with this, to have 3 members of the board to be selected by the board, sit down with staff and with the temple to determine a location for the placing of a menorah.
Second?
Okay.
That's the same motion, isn't it?
No.
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 That's a different motion.
I think, however, Mr. Attorney might have to help me out here. I think your motion included the 3 members of the board, which I agree with, but your motion was very conclusive, that the board would meet with the temple and find the location and it would be installed. So you're basically, if I'm understanding you correctly, you're deferring the 3 members of the board to make a decision that, yes, we're going to do it and where it's going to go. Is that correct?
Discussion.
Mayor, I just, you raise an important point. To me, the motion is to approve the ask and resolve the location.
That's what I heard.
So with this vote, the board is voting to allow it, subject to the meeting to decide where. If that's not what you meant, my job is to make sure that you understand exactly what you're voting on.
Repeat that, sir.
So the motion is to allow the menorah to be installed in the park, provided that 3 members of the
Not
board.
specifically in the park.
In
And
April.
the
Oh,
location
excuse me,
to
on
be
city
determined.
property, okay, on city property, provided that 3 members of the board and staff meet with the temple to decide where. So the permission will be given upon this vote, with the only variable being where.
And that's where the disconnect is with me and the motion is, I'm fine sitting down and discussing it with them, because I think all parties need to have this conversation, because I want everyone to understand what the potential ramifications could be on this decision if it's being made, because I'm not sure that we've all thought this out. If we sit down and have that conversation, that group may come back and say, you know what, the city was probably right, we may not want to do this, let's find something else that we can partner on and do something different. Your motion, I think, is exactly what the attorney said, is the subset group of this board, 3 members, will get with them, we're going to find out where it's going to go, and we're going to put it there.
That's what I heard.
Is that the spirit of your motion? Was to make the decision?
That's the intent of my motion.
Okay,
yes.
and Alderman Best, I think Alderman Best seconded it?
She did.
Can I rescind that?
You sure can.
I'll rescind that second.
Okay. Alderman Prill, do you want to put a little flexibility in there to have a conversation with 3 members of this board and representatives from the temple on a potential location and potential acquisition and potential installation of a menorah?
Can I ask one question?
Sure, absolutely.
And I'm kind of opening it up to the community, because I was not and I'm not sure I would be in favor of, at least this year, for city funds to be expended to purchase and/or construct a menorah. So does the community have a menorah that is available that
Okay.
could be, I'm asking the question, but
That's-
it's not a question that the board can answer.
That's fine. So make a motion that you would like to get feedback from the folks in the audience. We'll get a second, we'll open it up and we'll allow them to come up and speak. So if you would like to allow them to do that, make that motion. I'm sure we'll probably get approved.
Any other board members at all interested in hearing from the community?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, then I'll make a motion to open it up for the community to answer the question.
All right, yeah, just want to be clear because I don't want to be here till 11 o'clock talking about this issue. So can we have a limitation? So let's open the conversation up for 5 minutes. Is that amenable?
I would think it would take less than 30 seconds
Perfect.
to get an answer.
All right, so are you good with that?
Yep.
Got a motion to open up the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
We did say
Second from
30
Alderman.
seconds.
He did say 30 seconds.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
30 seconds.
Any opposed? Okay, Alderman Prill, ask your question, sir.
Well, I'm asking the community, is there a menorah available that could be located somewhere in the city?
There
based
is
on
no
this?
menorah, however, based on the support that you've seen here, I've had people come to me and say they are willing to donate. I think we could probably raise the money in a few days for a menorah. That's my sense, but.
Okay, thank you.
All right, very good. So we are back to having Alderman Prill's original motion. That was, the second was rescinded, so now we're back to square one, I believe.
Then I will tweak my motion to authorize 3 members of this board and staff to meet with whoever we're going to meet with in the community, presumably representatives of the asking party, that's Temple B'nai Shalom, in the next 2 weeks to see if we can determine a location for a menorah to be set up on public property and have a recommendation back to this board at our second meeting this month for a decision by this board.
Everybody good with that motion? We're committing to having a conversation, or 3 members having a conversation and bringing back information and a recommendation at the next board meeting. Is that
Yes.
good? So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
And that included erected on city property.
Correct.
Yes. The site yet to be determined.
Do we have a second? For the record, I would support that motion. So,
I thought, so this is a new motion.
that is correct.
Did you second it?
I did not second, no ma'am.
Chair can't second.
Okay. I'm weary. Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Second by Alderman Royal. For the sake of this one, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Best.
Alderman Best,
The reason why I'm voting the way I vote is because I feel that I do not, whatever the discussion may turn out to be, I do not want this on city property because it's going to open up the doors for other people, organizations, groups, individuals. So I'm voting no.
Alderman Brinson,
I'm voting yes to the conversation, but I'm opposed to having it on city property.
Alderman Prill,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
Yes to the conversation.
Alderman Astor,
Yes to the conversation as well.
Alderman Kinsey,
Just for the conversation, not for the property of the city.
Mayor Odham.
Yes. That passed, I presume?
It did.
So now, let's figure out the 3 lucky members of the board. I would assume that it would be ones that voted yes to the proposal that would like to meet with the group. Again, I'll be happy to. I don't have to be, but be happy to do it if nobody else
I
wants
can meet also.
I'll be happy to.
to. All right, Alderman Prill, Alderman Royal, and myself, unless somebody else wants to take it up.
You take my spot.
Thank you, appreciate that. I'll vote last on it too, so. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor, I have nothing further.
All right, very good. Alderman Royal.
I have a couple of items, please. Let me find the paper. Give me 1 second, Mayor. One of the things I'd like to mention, please, I mentioned this in the past, and I raised this issue again. I would like for us to schedule a workshop or information session, whatever, however we want to define it, for us to define the roles of the Board of Aldermen and the mayor. I mentioned it before, I'd like to see that done. I know that I can read and I can decipher things on my own, but I'd like to see that workshop session, whatever forum we can put it in, take place. That's one item.
I want to make sure we're clear because we need to give staff some direction. So define the roles.
Yes,
Okay.
just to say what our role is.
I'm sure the
As
School
the-
of Government has something like that. Maybe the clerk could check with her resources to see.
Well, who was the gentleman that came to the previous meeting under the preceding board that talked about the nonprofit board of directors? The gentleman came from Raleigh.
From the league.
Yeah, about the conflicts. Yeah, he was from the league.
Would he be a viable person to?
Him or somebody like him. There's folks that would do that
Okay,
for sure.
well, I'd like to see that and for us to establish a date for it and get it on the calendar.
So I like being clear on this stuff, so tomorrow when staff has their meeting, they know what to do. So we want, the majority of the board, want to make sure we agree that we want staff to find someone who can come do a workshop for us to talk about roles and responsibilities of the board members. Is that good?
That's correct.
Is anybody opposed to that? Okay.
Can I make a suggestion?
That's what the city
Even
attorney's
if
for.
if this could actually be not held in person, and if we can have it as a, someone presenting to
Remote.
us, as remotely present this information to us from the School of Government, or whoever we feel that needs to present this information to us.
I'm an in-person kind of person, however.
I mean, they could take it individually, but as a board, they
Right.
can't participate in a Zoom.
Did they participate in their newly elected official program
Yes.
at Chapel Hill?
Everyone.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not sure we're going to get someone to say something different that's already been said. But there might be a slide presentation. I'm sure there is.
I can ask.
I'm sure there's a slide presentation we can get.
So we'll work on it.
Thank you.
We heard the recommendation, so we'll see if we can figure something out.
Thank you. This might be for Mr. Childs. The demolition of the property on Garden Street, the mobile home that was there. Why has that project not been taken care of in a timely manner? It has been ongoing. I don't know if there's different parts of that mobile home that has to be addressed at different times.
We have not received the actual demolition because there was an issue with, once it was approved by the board for demolition, someone went in and started taking things off of that building, and that is what's held it up right now. But I'll check and see where that stands with development services. We can push forward. once they have that
Someone,
issue.
meaning
Somebody was taking the copper and steel off of the trailer.
illegally removing.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, well, the day or two after the board approved demolition.
I was wondering why the city was moving
Yes,
so slowly.
yes, ma'am. That was not us performing that type of demolition, but we will complete it.
It's amazing, though, that trailer has sat there for years, and the time that we decide we're gonna authorize that it's gonna be torn down, now all of a sudden somebody goes in and takes the copper out of it.
That's correct.
That's awfully ironic. So,
And there was no indication who did that, the owner?
Not that I'm aware
no
of, I've
one?
not been involved following up.
It was a midnight occurrence.
I'm unsure, I could not
Yeah.
speak on it.
That's strange, thank you. I don't know where or when we're gonna get to this regarding the December 12th Christmas gathering.
Let's do it right now. Might as well.
We have alluded, talked, discussed. I know that we're gonna have it, but yes, we can go ahead on it.
Yeah, I think, I think we probably need to give some very clear direction on what the board would like to see and do on December 12th regarding the Christmas gathering of the board.
May I say something?
Sure.
I'm not in favor for the city to provide any funds towards a Christmas gathering for the Board of Aldermen. And I'm definitely not in favor of having any type of a dinner or whatever for this Board of Aldermen and our employees are not receiving anything, or the decision hasn't been made for our employees. I'm not going to go eat a dinner at the city's expense and our employees, we haven't even discussed if we're going to do anything for the employees or not.
Mr. Hughes, I think probably has some clarity on that.
Yes, so for the last few years, we have included December gifts for city employees in the budget, in the human resources budget. So it would be the same thing that we've been doing the last few years for that. Also, as part of that, we've been doing the quarterly meals for city employees, and the next one is scheduled for, I believe, December 6th for a holiday luncheon for city employees.
And we get to enjoy that as well.
Yes, sir.
I'm still not in favor of the city funds being used to purchase any dinner for this board for a Christmas dinner.
Mr. Hughes, when did you say that employee event was going to be?
December 6th.
December the 6th.
What time? Is it 11 to 1?
It's about 11:30 to 1 or 1:30, yes.
What location? West Newburgh?
That will be at West New Bern Recreation Center.
Thank you, sir.
So if the board decided that we wanted to parlay a board gathering and we all want to sit at the same table at that event and have lunch, we need to call for a meeting for that, correct?
As long as you don't discuss city business, right?
Say that again, Mayor.
7 of us sit at a table for an hour and don't discuss city business. It's going to be very hard, but,
We can mind.
okay.
We can mind.
I don't think all of us have to sit at the same table.
Exactly.
Well, the reason I said that is because I think that was the original intent, was to try to build some camaraderie with the board. It's just the nature of government is it's very challenging to do that. I would love for us to sit down and have conversations and no cameras on and just be real. I try to do that as much as possible, but I try to be a little respectful too at times when I could say some other things.
I give you my word, I will not discuss business.
Okay. So the board is free on December 6th to join the city employees at this event, barring we don't talk about city business, assuming that there's a quorum there. I will go back to the December 12th meeting that we're going to have. I personally, and I know that not everybody agrees with this, I have no issue with the city providing a meal for this board when we are here for hours at a time doing city business. I draw the line with the spouse thing, so that's where I kind of got lost on the agreement or the discussion that was going back and forth. But if we're going to be here at 2 o'clock, is that what budget time, budget workshop? We're going to be here from 2 o'clock and we have a board meeting at 6 o'clock. And we're going to be here for several hours. Again, I don't mind bringing something in the crock pot, but if the city wants to order dinner for the board, that is not unheard of. That is part of doing your job and duties as a board member, in my opinion. I know there's some that disagree with that.
I concur with you. And as you said, if spouses are not included, it's just for the board. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I think it's a great idea.
I mean, we have a city policy, I'm assuming, for travel and entertainment that governs the amount. I mean, we're not going to order in, you know, from the Angus Barn in Raleigh and have it door dashed in and it be $150 a piece. So, you know, as long as we follow our guidelines, I don't have a problem with having a meal provided for that particular meeting. That's where I am. I think you said you were against it, but.
I was more so against it until we have a decision on what we're gonna do for our city employees.
So now you're in favor?
Well,
And also, Foster,
you did
am I
today.
correct? Also, am I correct that the employees will still be getting the gift card?
Yes, they will.
Okay.
So, let's get some clarity again for the staff. What is staff planning on doing right now based off of the feedback? And if you say you don't know, that's fine.
Based on the feedback for the work session on December 12th?
Yes.
Well,
We called for.
Brenda, why don't you pull?
I don't know.
So that's fine, that's perfect. So we called for a meeting here at 2 o'clock on December the 12th. And I think we sort of said we would probably hang out and continue that meeting while we had our party, dinner, meal, whatever you want to call it. If everybody's good with that, if staff is okay with following our purchasing policy to provide a meal for the board, just the board, not spouses, is anybody opposed to that?
No, sir.
Okay. That was not as difficult as I thought it was going to be. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yes, sir.
All right.
One question regarding the status of the progress with DOT, Mr. Hughes, with the traffic light.
Talked to George Childs about this actually yesterday. They are, Public Works is waiting for the agreement from DOT to be signed, and then hopefully construction will begin on that immediately thereafter.
Thank you so much. That is all I have.
All right. Alderman Astor.
Mayor, as I think many of the members of this board know, there's plans for a school to be built, a private school to be built on Old Airport Road near, is it Creekside? What? I can't remember the name of that little subdivision. It's not Creekside, is it?
No, but you're talking about Old Airport Road.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is the portion from Taberna Circle, no, Taberna Way, over to, it must be Grantham Road or something like that, where it comes out by there. Anyway, my question is, I would like to see a resolution of some sort to North Carolina DOT in light of that park being there and the school coming, that some road improvements be made there, including widening that road.
Don't we own that road?
No, not this section of it we don't own.
I thought we took over all of Old Airport.
No, just from Taberna Circle down to County Line Road. I'm talking about the part over by Creekside Park.
Oh, okay, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's a terrible
road's in
road.
terrible condition. So I would like, of course, to send it, is it a resolution that is what asking them to take into consideration the new school that's going to start construction soon, and see if they can do some improvements to that road, including widening it. I mean,
It is bad. It really is. Is anybody opposed to?
See, I have a comment to make about that. Alderman Astor, you just sit there tonight and you just denied me when I'm talking about the roads in my community. But now you're talking about improving.
This is a DOT road.
Okay, well, you're still talking about roads. I'm talking about city roads. City roads.
We'll vote against it then. I mean,
City road. No, I'm not gonna vote against it, no.
It's a DOT road.
I just had to mention that.
We have no authority over it whatsoever.
Well, this is the same with Simmons Street. It's a DOT road. Look
I
at
agree,
Simmons
and it
Street.
needs work as well.
Can you add
see
that
what I'm
to the
saying?
resolution?
Yeah, that would be nice if you want to.
And then add the 4 that I had.
Well, they're city roads, they're not state roads.
That's the difference. They're city owned.
I know this, and I just had to mention that because of what Alderman Answer mentioned earlier. That's why. That's
Duly noted, but I don't think we want to send the DOT a resolution for roads we own. So,
No.
Alderman
Of course
Astor, would you
not.
like to make a motion of that effect?
question, was this with DOT money?
Yes.
Oh,
It's DOT.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I would like to make that a motion.
Can you just clarify,
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we send a resolution to the North Carolina Department of Transportation asking them to, considering the construction of the new school on that portion of Old Airport Road between Taberna Way and I would think that's Grantham Road. Would that be Grantham? No, it would be Williams Road, wouldn't it? What's the road that the airport's on? Anyways. Anyway, then we'll just scratch out that part of it and put the portion of Old Airport Road that's owned by North Carolina Department of Transportation and to make improvements, including widen the road.
Cinnamon Street?
You want me to include Cinnamon Street?
Absolutely.
And the paving of Cinnamon Street as well.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a second. I just want to clarify. This is a resolution, so this is going to be brought back at our next meeting in print for us to approve, so.
Yes, sir.
And that can be put on the consent agenda because we're approving it now.
Yes, sir.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Anything else, sir?
No, thank you.
Alderman McKenzie.
Well, tonight was quite of a shock to me in what's happening when the wrong information is given out to a group of people, it falls back on us. And I don't know how to prevent events like that. Who giving them the wrong information because they kept saying what they was told and what they was expecting us to do for them, not knowing the consequences that we will suffer from that. I was a little taken by that. So I don't know who's responsible for that. Is it anybody from the board that made a promise to them that we could do something for them? And I don't know. It was challenging to me tonight to see the action. Some of them was nasty, some of them was good. But you have good and bad in Christian people. They show, just like they say, is the most segregated place on Sundays is the church. And that was true. You have a chance to see that out there in the audience tonight. I mean, it was very disturbing to me. But that's what they do, and they do it well.
Alderman McKenzie, I'm lost. What information
Well,
are you
they,
referring to that you classified?
the way that they presented, like someone told them something can happen, but it did not happen. I feel that it was misled in information based on what they want to do. They was disappointed. That's what I gather from them myself. I don't know what you all picked up because everybody on the board was saying something different tonight in the discussion and what they believe and what they want to see.
So, Alderman McKenzie, I can tell you that when I talked to members of the temple, after I polled this board, and I believe it was at some point in September, I did reach out to them and let them know what the majority of the board's desires were on that.
Okay.
And they also at that time said that they would like to speak to the board, like to be put on an agenda, which basically they were on tonight. So they requested that as soon as I told them that.
But they act like they was really disappointed that they couldn't have their way and that they was a little out of touch and out of place, like they were going to make us or tell us what to do. You know, that's the behavior that I received. I don't know what anybody else take on that. But
Well, my take on it is, I objected to the fact that our pre-agenda had their presentation on the agenda, just like the wreath presentation. They were back to back. I was fine with that, because they were just going to be making a presentation. And then the board would discuss it or not. But apparently, other members of the board took exception to that issue being on the agenda, and it got pulled. And I object to the fact that it got pulled. And that's why I was forcing the issue, because I wanted this board to discuss it. They wanted to hear the board discuss it. And it wasn't happening unless I kept pushing it.
Alderman Prill.
So there was no misinformation. They're disappointed in the board not being willing to discuss it.
Alderman Prill, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'll be happy to discuss that. So when we go back to the rules and procedures that the board works by, the rules and procedures say that if any one member wants an item on the agenda, that it is to be brought up under new business. There's to be a motion and a second, and if the majority of the board says they want to discuss it at a future agenda, it gets on the agenda. Obviously, staff has things every week, every day that needs to get on the agenda, and I think we all would agree that if a staff has an issue that they need to put on the agenda, that goes on the agenda. That's what we're here to do the business of. The item of the wreath, and I knew that was going to come up, so I'm prepared for it. Again, I mentioned earlier that the previous board said, you don't have to come every year to do this. You're okay. We're going to continue to support it. And that group said, well, we would like to continue to come to promote it. And that board said, okay. So if this board no longer wants Wreaths Across America to make their presentation, we just need to say so, because the precedent for them has been set. Now, Alderman Kinsey, Alderman Best, Alderman Astor, you were all here before. If I'm saying anything wrong, please correct me. The issue with this menorah is I agreed to have this conversation. I think I'm the one that helped craft the motion with you to get this moved forward. But we've got to get out of this point in society, and I know I'm going to digress a long ways, but I'm going to go there. Maybe I'm getting old. Maybe I'm getting just more humble or whatever in my old age, but we've got this thing in society where you're either for or against something. You're either for Israel and put a menorah up, or you're against Israel. And we got to get past that. And New Bern, I love the fact that everybody uses this motto, everything comes together here. Well, do we really want to talk about that? Because I can tell you a lot of things that didn't come together here. One of them is the Kesslers with the Elks building that's going to sit vacant until somebody else comes up with about $27 million to do something with it. So if we want to work together as a board, and I hope that's what we can do, I think we foster some good conversation and healthy discussion tonight. But we got to get past this, I'm for, you're against. Let's pack the courtroom, and whoever is the loudest is going to win. This is not American Idol. This is about the board governing the city. And there's rules and procedures, and that's the reason that the item got pulled off of the agenda, because that's the reason we have a pre-agenda, for everybody to look at it and say, wait a minute, I don't remember this being discussed. How did this get on the agenda? Pull it. It wasn't supposed to be there. That's my rant. Sorry. I've been holding that in for all day.
But the thing that gets me, though, they feel that they can intimidate you and scare you when they come in here. I don't pay it no mind myself, because I know they're just all mouth, and they want to cry out that,
What are you talking about?
the people that was here tonight.
I didn't feel intimidated one bit by that. Those people.
I didn't feel intimidated, but there was some 2 or 3 people that stormed out of the room and made comments on their way out. Right. And that's why I told the group that stayed here that was very respectful. I appreciate the way they managed that conversation, and I think we came to a resolution tonight. But when you stand up and you say, I'm disappointed in you, and I'll be honest with you, I don't even think they even realized what the vote was that we took, if I'm being honest with you. They thought that the whole deal was done and over with, and nobody's going to speak about it tonight. But what did? We followed our rules and procedures. We allowed them to speak. The board deliberated at our time, and I'll remind everybody, too, the attorney can back me up on this. A Board of Aldermen meeting is our meeting.
Correct.
It's this governing body's meeting. It's not the public. It's open to the public. And that's why we have Petition of Citizens. Once a month, they can come here for 4 minutes. As long as they follow this guideline that we have, they can pretty much say what they want to say. But after 4 minutes is up, it's time for this board to deliberate. And that's what we did tonight. And I think that's good government myself. I appreciate the folks that stayed for the entire meeting. They listened to it all, and I think hopefully they went home with maybe a win. We're going to have a discussion and we're going to come to a resolution. But Alderman Kinsey, I agree with you that when people stand up when we're trying to conduct business and they storm out of here, that's not helping your cause. You know, that would make me want to tell those people, no, I'm not supporting putting whatever you want up. But when you sit there and you're respectful and we have dialogue and conversation, that's what good government is. And I think that's what we had for the majority of the night. So.
That's what they did, storming out. Bobby, you must have went to sleep because that's
I
what I
wasn't
saw.
sleeping. One or two guys that made some stupid comments and walked out the door. But there was a whole courtroom full of people here that were very respectful.
Well, I'm glad that your opinion is different than mine.
Anything else?
I think I'm through. You know?
Alderman Best, new business.
Yes, Chief Gallagher, I just want to ask a question, because I had someone reach out to me, a citizen reached out to me. The Shot Spotter event that was at the Omega Center, is that where it can be viewed online now, or YouTube, or where is that located within on the city's website?
I would have to defer to Colleen, I'm not
Okay.
sure. I know it was recorded.
Right.
We made sure that was done. I think Colleen can answer that
Okay.
question.
Yes, Alderman Best, we are editing it for inclusion on YouTube. We will share it on social media. It will also be posted on City 3 TV, and also will be found on our video on demand site on our website as well.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir. That's it.
Alderman Brinson.
Yes, I want to thank the Veterans Garden and NC Works for having a great veterans stand down this past week. It was a good turnout at the Armory, and a lot of services were there, both from the VA, federal VA, and from the North Carolina Department of Veterans Affairs. So well attended, and not just by people in and around New Bern, but also those agencies. Also had a great Veterans Council of Craven County Veterans Day luncheon. Wanted to put out that Liz Hartman was given the Veteran of the Year Award for Craven County. A lot of people know her, commander of 539, also one of the leaders of March for the 22. Also want to congratulate Gary Gillette, very prominent veteran or in both leadership and membership for a lot of our veteran organizations. He was given a Lifetime Achievement Award for veterans. And in a new category, we wanted to recognize businesses that have been both generous with their time and their volunteers and their money. And so we recognize Carolina East as the Business of the Year for that award. And then I also want to pass along to our police department, March for the 22, thanked you for participating in their safety in their march, and it was a very successful march. And I also want to thank all the local businesses that were instrumental in thanking veterans for this past Veterans Day weekend.
Okay, just a couple things. I believe I saw where the Middle and Broad Street stoplight did not receive any bids. Is that correct? So I guess we're sending that back out.
That is getting ready to go back out for bid, George.
Okay. Last thing I want to bring up, I don't think it's going to spur a lot of conversation, but I wanted to bring it up. We now have two main entrances to City Hall. We have the old historic one, then we have the new one where the elevator is. If I could go back in time, I probably would make some changes to that decision on how the layout is from a safety and security standpoint. Anybody can walk in off of the street, hit the elevator button and go. If you look, there's a sign that says Mayor's Office, second floor. You can come up here, but I'm probably not going to be here. But today, someone walked in that new elevator entrance, walked in, went all through this building, went through the clerk's office and looked at her and said, "Who are you?" And she says, "I'm the clerk. Who are you?" And he said, "Well, I've already walked through this building. I'm just going to walk through the rest of it." So I'm fine with us being open and accessible for good government, but From a safety and security standpoint, we've got some very smart people here on staff with law enforcement background, military background. I would like for there to be an assessment made and some recommendations made to make sure that this building is safe and secure for the employees that are here and the employees that will be here in the future. I can tell you my suggestion. My suggestion would be to block off the old entrance, put the wood door back that was there years ago, because right now when you stand there, it feels like a blizzard coming through when it's cold. Put the wood door back there, put a sign that says go to the elevator entrance, and have some sort of intercom or something. I would prefer to have a desk there with someone manning it to help direct people in where they need to go. But I'm not going to get that much into the weeds, but I do think it's something that needs to be addressed for the safety and security of the employees in City Hall.
I agree.
Anyone disagree?
So when you want to start, Foster?
Start tomorrow.
Okay.
So Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I know this is a city building, so citizens have access to this building at any time?
Currently,
Is
they
that-
do right now.
But I'm saying, is that the law?
No, ma'am.
They don't have to, we don't have to give them access to this building?
No, no, ma'am.
I
Then
have,
that
Only
could-
to transact business that they need to transact.
Okay.
I've visited
Okay.
several other city halls, and when you walk in the front door, someone greets you and asks you, what are you there for? And if you're there to see somebody, they point you in the right direction, and some of them even have a nice little sticker they put your picture on. I'm not saying we gotta go there, but I mean, people come in here all the time thinking it's the Register of Deeds or it's the courthouse, and staff is having to direct them somewhere, and I think we need to be more efficient in how we handle that.
Absolutely.
So could that be avoided by, when you come in where the entrance to the elevator is located, that you cannot get up onto any of the floors if you have our badge? That's the only way you'd be able to get in the door.
That, or there be some sort of
Yeah.
mechanism there to where somebody has to buzz you in to allow you
Exactly.
to get on the elevator.
Something.
That's
I
kind of
agree.
what I'm getting at, so.
Okay.
And obviously, I know there'll be costs associated with this. We just spent $4.3 million. But we need to make sure that the $4.3 million is functionable. And right now, I think it's questionable myself.
Well, Foster's going to take care of that first thing in the morning. Thank you, sir.
Alderman Prill, you like you were getting ready to say something?
No, I mean, your recommendation is just an assessment be done.
Absolutely,
That-
yeah,
That's all
yeah,
you're asking.
absolutely. Just an assessment. Staff can come back with some options, and again, I'm sure there's going to be costs associated, and the board will have to make a decision, but I feel like we need to address it. Okay, do we need a closed session?
No, sir.
Very good.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.